In this episode of We Do a Little, we are joined by our dear friend Isaac Wright, aka Drift. Drift is an honorably retired Army Special Ops veteran of 6 years who began shooting photography to cope with mental illness, specifically PTSD and depression. His work captures the world from never-before-seen perspectives. We dive deep into his background, growing up in Cincinnati, joining the military, getting incarcerated, becoming free, climbing pyramids, the Bail Project, what Drift is working on now, and so much more. As always, this pod is for entertainment purposes only. It should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Andy, D's, and guests may own NFTs discussed.
This is Andy.
Yeah, I'm D's. GM, everybody, we're back with a new episode of We Do a Little. We're here with the man, the myth, the legend, Drifter Shoots.
What's up, y'all?
Drift, how are you doing?
I'm good. I just moved to New York area, so I left Ohio, and it feels good, and finished all my legal stuff. So I'm really, really happy to be out here.
Free, out of Ohio.
Yes.
I'll hold down Ohio for us.
Someone has to.
Someone has to.
We get a bad rap, but like someone.
What is your favorite thing about living in the city so far?
Accessibility to just shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I thrive in urban environments, and I feel like ever since I started shooting, I always wanted to be New York based, and now I can just shoot whenever I want, and so
Don't need to plan a trip.
Yeah, no need to plan a trip, and I'm just consistently inspired in New York, and like creatively, there's so many other people I can meet up with that want to do, huge, bigger creative things, and so I feel like for people that are vision oriented, like New York is perfect for that. There's tons of other big thinkers, and I will never rag on Ohio. It gets enough of that, but you don't always have that in Ohio.
The energy just isn't there. It's
the
different.
energy is not.
The energy here is crazy.
Right, exactly, and that I thrive off of that type of energy. So I love being here and just being able to shoot whenever I want, and just access to other creative people and artistic people, and having an international airport nearby.
It's definitely nice.
Yeah.
What was life like growing up in Ohio? You grew up around Cincinnati, right?
Cincinnati, yeah. I mean, I guess Cincinnati is kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Ohio, all the way at the bottom, basically Kentucky to everybody else, so, but I mean, it was good. I feel like the Midwest is so ordinary sometimes that it gets, I feel like it does produce really amazing people because of that, honestly, because I feel like you either grow up or go with the mold, or you grow up and you're like, fuck this, I want to do something completely different, right? So I feel like that was a really, really good part of growing up, was just seeing things and seeing what I didn't want for my life, and but also like there's a lot of good Midwestern values of just like hard work and doing what you have to do to get where you want to go, and simple stuff like that. That was really good. Like neither of my parents were from Ohio, but they just kind of ended up there. So
just through chance.
Yeah, I mean, they
settled down.
They decided to settle in Ohio of all places. Like my mom's father was in the military, so they were all over the place, but they ended up mostly settling in rural Indiana, and then my father is from Flint, Michigan, and completely different lifestyles, completely different backgrounds my parents have, but they ended up settling in Ohio.
So while you were growing up in high school, you made the decision to join the military.
Yeah.
How did that decision come about?
I have a pretty similar military joining experience to a lot of other low-income minority people. It was just like I had been mostly self-sufficient as a teenager. I had multiple jobs. I was already supporting myself largely, and I wanted to continue doing that. And I had a pretty turbulent home life, so couldn't really bank on having security there after high school. So I just I joined the Army, and I wanted something where I could travel, I could be independent, but I could also learn tools for other things I need in life and maybe go to college or something like that. So yeah, I ended up joining in 2014 right out of high school.
And then at what point did you get into like urban exploring during all of this? You're growing up in Cincy. There's some bridges and skyscrapers, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's not New York.
I never had a draw to it. I was never into anything artistic.
You weren't climbing trees or anything like
I did climb trees as a kid.
Okay.
Like I was a wild child. Like I really was. Like I played all types of sports. I was always outside. I was climbing things. I mean, I just was like a typical like 90s baby outside, still in the generation where you went outside and like played with friends and stuff like that.
Like your parents will like lock you out and be like, you're not
coming home
until the sun's down.
Yes.
Like go do stuff and be active.
And that's like also, you know, like a very Ohio Midwestern thing where it's like, okay, it was still that time. Like I don't remember like things changing until I got maybe into like a high school, you know, where it was like, okay, now people like started to live lives largely online, and you know, but it was always like we were always doing something or active or out there. So yeah, but I was never into anything artistic. Like I can't draw or paint or anything to save my life. I can't, you know.
Same.
Yeah, like so I just thought I sucked at anything artistic my entire life, and I was never pushed into any of it either. You know, so but I got into urban exploring in 2018, and so I had been in the military for 4 years at that point. I had promoted very fast. I was getting ready to be staff sergeant, and I got moved out of special operations at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, down to a light infantry unit at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And I just remember, like, Fort Polk was like the worst duty station ever. Like, it was nicknamed the asshole of the Army. Like,
no.
it was
So you
awful.
knew when you were going there, like, fuck.
Yeah, I was like, fuck this, because right before that, I had went through Ranger assessment selections for the second time, and I made it all the way through the course, and ended up having some family difficulties at that time. Couldn't go on to an assignment at 2nd Ranger Battalion, and instead had to go back to Fort Bragg and then get reassigned down to Fort Polk, you know. So, and it was like my dream to be an Army Ranger, and I trained for it, and I went through, you know, the assessment course, and, you know, they're out of like 300 candidates, there's like 30 left at the end, you know, 28 left in the graduating class. And so, but that ended up being the best thing for me, because if I did that, I never would have ever picked up a camera, you know.
So 2018, get into urban exploring, you pick up the camera. Your first climb, did you have your phone camera? Did you bring a camera with
I
you?
had a Nikon D7200. So I had just bought this camera and I hadn't shot anything with it. I was at Fort Polk, and then it's Western Louisiana, so it's not like New Orleans or, you know, out that way. It's the whole other side of the state where you're in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like, you know, it's legit.
You're in the asshole of the
you really are. Like it sucks, dude. Like the highlight of every town is like a Walmart. You know, it's like one of those type of towns.
Where you go to hang
House
out,
at
blow
Walmart.
some steam.
Yeah, Waffle House, Popeye's Chicken, Walmart, and like
It's trifecta.
yes. So it sucked, but I was like, okay. I remember going down there and being like, all right, well, you can either, you know, hate your life, because I was going through a lot at that time too, and I was going through a lot of just inner turmoil and change, and I was like, or you can apply yourself and like go, you know, try to make something out of where you're at. So I drove to Houston, which was 2.5 to 3 hours away, depending on traffic. And this first weekend, I shot around with like some local Houston photographers that when they were back doing like photographer meetups, and I absolutely fucking hated it. Like everyone was like, I had a really cool idea and I shot it, and then everyone else shot it and stole my idea and posted it on Instagram. And I was like, fuck this. I don't
want to go to this meetup shit.
Yeah,
Again.
I was like, this sucks. So, but then I went back like the following weekend or 2 weekends later, and it was just like I was awake in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep, and just something was like, just go to Houston. And I don't know where I first saw urban exploring. I had like dated a girl from New York who I think like we stumbled across it on Instagram. And I was like, oh, this is cool. But I never thought like, oh, I want to go do this, you know?
So what made you buy the camera too? Sorry.
Yeah,
No.
that's good.
Because like you had the camera, but
Yeah.
you didn't
Yes.
have the urban exploring. But you thought enough, like I need this Nikon to like start snapping pics.
Yeah.
Went to the photography meetups.
Yeah, because I went through a complete restructuring of life in 2017. I was like, all right, my goal of being Army Ranger didn't happen. I split up with my long-term partner at the time. I was completely broke. I was going through a lot of financial difficulties and was like very financially illiterate back then. So I was like working my way out of debt, and because when we split, like there was some things in my name, and it like ended up being really hard. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get my shit together. And so I was like working 2 extra jobs still at Fort Bragg, and like my command didn't know, and I was paying off debt. I paid off like $30,000 worth of debt in like a year or two.
Damn, that's a grind.
Yeah,
With those jobs, it's like
yeah, I was in the Army full time, which is like a 70-hour a week job. I was flipping pizzas at one point, and I was like a security guard at the mall, you know. But I was just like, fuck this. I want like a better life. I want to be financially free. So I like worked my way out of debt over the next 2 years. And I told myself, I was like, I'm going to travel more. So I want to get a camera to take pictures when I travel. So I got that camera around the beginning of 2018 or end of 2017, like somewhere around there. And then wasn't really using it, and then started using it in May of 2018. So that's how I got the camera and what led to there. And so I wake up in the middle of the night, I drive to Houston, I see this big ass construction site, like 50 stories tall. And I was like, fuck it. I just want to know what it's like to sit up there. Like, and it was definitely at a point in life where it was like, all right, I was going through a lot of like separation from my identity growing up, like religion, you know, my identity being black and in the military, black and in America, and like culturally and just consciously like what that meant, and if I wanted to continue down this path. And I was feeling like I didn't want to. I was feeling like I wanted everything to change. So there was a lot of depression that came along with that, because I was basically playing a role that I had outgrown and that no longer fit who I was becoming, you know. So I get into the site, I take the stairs all the way up. I'm sitting there, I make it up to the top, and I'm just sitting there vibing out above Houston, like on a summer night. And it's like the most amazing feeling ever. I only took a few shots and they absolutely fucking suck. But like but it was like the calm, you know, like it was very cathartic, and I didn't feel like any type of like adrenaline. It was just like, no, I feel at home, you know. And so I just started shooting around Houston with my friend Toast. Like I met this guy. Like I took some photos there, and I like shared them on Instagram, and some local Houston people, like guys that were in urban exploring, saw it, and they're like, "Oh my God!" And so of course they're like, "Can you take me?" And we went back a couple times, and like that's how I met my friend Toast, which is who I started like exploring with. And over the next 2 years, we'd like do damn near every building in downtown Houston. Like we just kept exploring. Like for him, it was like he was tapering off of like heroin, and it was like a way that he could word through that. And like for me, I was like, you know, completely refinding who I was. And you know, that's where the drifter part of my username came from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as back then it was just drifter with like 5 underscores or something like that, you know? So
Someone had Drifter.
yeah, I know. Yeah, some guy still has Drifter on Instagram, and I can't get it because he logs in like once a year to like 4 posts, and
Keeps
So
the name.
yeah, he keeps active like once a year,
Good
but
shooting.
so yeah, that's how I got into it, and I just fell in love with the way it made me feel. It wasn't even at that point. It wasn't even about taking this awesome shot or whatever. It still really isn't. It's just like the art is like a byproduct of what it's doing to me as a person. I started to realize like, okay, this is making me a much better person, and so then I really knew like, okay, this is it. Because in the summertime I came out here to New York. It was summer of 2018, and I ended up doing one of the hardest construction sites like the city's ever seen. Like it was 220 Central Park South, and like not many people did it. It was like 1,000 feet tall and like right on the edge of Columbus Circle and Central Park. And me just like ignorant to New York exploring and stuff, just like hopped over the front gate and somehow made it to this back courtyard area and in and up. And like it was like thunderstorming that night. And then morning came and I was standing on what is now like a luxury balcony, luxury apartment balcony. And I was like standing there on an unfinished balcony and like just watching the sunrise over Central Park. It was like a very moody day, and like I was just like, man, I was like, this is just what I want to do forever. Like I don't know what this is, what to call it, if I can even make a living off this, right? Like I just want this feeling in my life forever, and it was making me better as a person, which is something I think like when you do find your purpose, you're going to know, because more than it doing all these different things in the world, it's going to start refining you first, like it's going to start making you a better person. It's going to start making you want to be excellent in all these different other areas too. So like it made me want to be more disciplined. It made me want to, like, I fixed my finances. I got out of that debt. Like, and then I used all the newfound like money, which was not a lot because, you don't make a lot being enlisted in the Army, but it was like, now I used it to buy camera gear or like travel or like, and I just put it all into shooting, and, I had a little, 2001 Volvo S60. It was like 250,000 miles on it, but it was the fucking dream. Like it drove everywhere. It never had an issue. And it was like, yeah, like finding my purpose was like all encompassing. I knew it was the right thing because it started changing me from the inside out, and I became a much more loving person. I became a much more reflective and honest person. And then I started to see it make waves like in the world. So I do think purpose works that way, where it works in you first, and then like sparks this fire in you, and then that fire slowly starts to spread, starts in you, and then it goes to another person. Before long, like you've got this wildfire of like people that have been infected by you just following a little light into the darkness of like, I don't know what this is, but my intuition tells me I should keep going with it, And I've just had all these different moments where it's been like my intuition says I should keep going. My intuition says this is not the end, and I don't know. It's always leading me off this beaten path, and so I've just stuck with it.
One question about climbs. I think we've talked about this on Space before, but I always like bring up, like, what is the scariest climb you've ever done? Or the scariest urban exploring adventure you've been on? And this might have changed since like the last time I asked it too.
This might have changed. Maybe the pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Giza, because the thing about it was that night in particular, like when we first entered the country, there was like a group of police officers that like surrounded me. They were like demanding shit from me. I was like, no, I don't have to give you X, Y, or Z documents. Like I don't have to open up my suitcases and let you take things out. Like it was crazy, So then the thing was like when we did the pyramids, we had hit out a tomb for like, we went on a tourist attraction into the site, and then the site closes at 4 in the afternoon. So we got off from like being tourists at 3. And then we went and we ventured into the desert away from like this throng that was on the roads. And we just dropped into a tomb and we slept there for like 5 hours. We slept there from like 3 to 8. And then we woke up at 8 and we like peeked our heads out. And then it was the last prayer of the day going on. And I was like, we should go now. And my traveling partner was like, no. He was more shook by Egypt than I was. Like, and he is like, he is like the most fearless explorer I've ever met. Like, he has done some of the craziest things. He has done, a lot of like metro work in Russia and Soviet Union and stuff, like a high stakes country where if you get caught, like you could disappear, So, but he was on edge about it, and there was guards at all 4 corners of the pyramids, and they'd walk down the roads, and they're armed, and if you're on the pyramids, they're allowed to shoot you, like or you could, or if you get caught, it's 6 months to 3 years in prison, like, and he had a graffiti writer friend there who just got caught on some metro tracks, like not painting or anything, and like went to prison for 9 months, and it like broke him mentally. So, like, the stakes were high, and it didn't used to be a criminal offense to trespass there, like prior to 2019, I think, but they've now since changed the law, so, but the biggest issue was not the guards, although like the thought of like obviously the biggest issue was like, we don't want to be caught, right, or seen or whatever, but it was the wild dogs that lived around the pyramids that like could smell any foreigner like miles away. So as soon as we get out of the tomb to try to edge up towards the road, they would bark and bark and bark and run from the other side of the pyramids around to the base there and just bark at us and come into the desert and bark at us. And so then we're like, okay, they're going to give us away. So we tried 5 times, like, to get up to the road. And then on the last time, this dog just stayed for 30 minutes, just like 15 yards away, just barking, barking, barking. Well, as soon as he left the dog, I was like, fuck it. We either go now or we just
miss it.
We miss it. We sleep overnight here and we climb out when the tourists come in the morning and we just go to fuck home, And we just said fuck it and like sprinted all the way across the road. Like, we looked left, right, didn't see a guard on the road. We saw them like in like corners at their booths, and we just fucking sprinted across the road to the base of the pyramid and started climbing. By the time we had touched the first brick of the pyramid, it was a pretty heavy sprint to get there. So it was like 40, 50 yards and, in the desert and sand and with backpacks. And like by the time we had touched the first brick, the dogs had already started running around the pyramid. And the bricks are like as high as this table, maybe even higher.
That's what I was going to ask. Because I've never seen them in person.
Yes.
But like, I've watched a lot of Ancient Aliens and other stuff, and I know that they are abnormally big. Yeah, so I'm imagining like you have to climb, you have to pull yourself up each time. It's like I went to the next layer, pull myself up, go to the next layer, pull myself up.
And the pyramid is deceivingly tall.
Yeah.
It took if we did it nonstop, it probably would have took 30 minutes. But we had to stop because they started searching through the desert with flashlights, and we didn't know if it was for us or whatnot. And we had to lay down on this brick, and like we're on the we had moved from the center of the pyramids where the blocks were bigger to the corner, and we also moved to the corner so that we could pivot out of sight.
You could get to the other face.
Yes,
it's a square pyramid. So if you're looking here, you're like, all right,
yeah, we
like you're playing a video game.
Yes, it literally was like that. It was like playing hide and seek with guards,
playing fucking Metal Gear Solid.
Yes. And by the time we were halfway up, like the dogs left us alone. They were out there in the desert. In fact, I could look out and see one sitting on a rock. It looked like one of those old ass pictures of Egypt with like a little dog on a rock. It was literally that. It's postcard material. And then we just made our way up to the top. And at the top, it's so spacious, no one can see you. You could be up there just chilling, even in the daytime, probably.
How big is the top, like the base of it?
Shit, man. Maybe like as far across as this apartment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They have a party up there.
Yeah, you could legit just chill up there and no one would see you. As long as you don't move to the edge, if you stayed in the center, you're good. And now I wish I could have like overdated like stayed over the next day and like gotten some daytime shots. But I would have been afraid to like move to the edge, but I wouldn't have done it until like the end of tourist time, or something like that. But yeah, as soon as we get up there, this huge desert owl takes off from the top. It was like a full moon. It was crazy. That one was really, really nerve wracking because of the stakes. And then you've got to go down and you're like hopping, you're like sprinting and hopping down these giant bricks. And if you fall, you're gonna tumble and break your fucking neck. Like,
yeah, like that's
And then we had to sprint through the desert for a couple miles and like to get out. It was intense. I would say either that or like the first time I met the same friend that I went with, we were in London and like he took me on this. We were going to shoot something underground, but to get there, we had to climb it was like first it was wet and cold and we had to climb a tree.
Sounds like London if it's wet.
Yeah, exactly. We had to climb a tree like 4 stories.
A tree?
A tree on above ground railroad tracks, 4 stories up. And then you had to hang, right? And like below you is like a razor wire fence and then just ground. Like if you fall, very well could die, or you're going to break your legs and you're just through. But you're hanging on a tree branch and you have to like get momentum and swing your leg over onto the roof of this building and then grab this like metal railing there on the edge of the roof and then pull yourself over. And from there, there's like removing grates off this wall and then you go inside. Like the tree part was so nerve wracking because it was like he is like so agile. He was like a parkour gymnast, like, and he just does it no problem. Like I just see it, he's just woof, like
I know who you're talking about.
One movement, yeah.
I've watched the videos,
and I'm like, what the fuck, man? And so
he's crazy.
Yeah, I'm like legitimately like I'm like, man, I'm afraid right now, and I made it over. I then. You've got to remove these grates off the wall, climb inside, take 2 ladders downstairs, open up a door, go down a hallway, and then to the right of you, it's pitch black. You can feel this wind coming up, and to the right of you is this giant shaft you have to climb down. It's like this. You have to climb down a little wall that like you have this much room for your hands and feet. So you're grabbing on the bolts. And going down another step, and like this is as much room like you're stepping onto, and you're grabbing on the bolts and stepping down. It's like 40 yards straight. It's not
even as big as your foot. Like you're stepping onto something smaller
than your foot, and then
you're wearing Vans doing all this.
Yeah, and then grabbing on the bolts, and then stepping down, and then grabbing on the bolts. So if you slip and fall, you're dead. If you mess up, you're done. And it was like 40 yards straight down to shoot a layup under London. It was crazy.
The tree maneuver.
I
would never trust. I mean, myself, I am not in shape, but like I would never trust a tree maneuver like that.
No, the majority of people that have like done that spot, which is like very few, they've brought a giant ass ladder from the ground up to the roof.
That makes sense.
I was like, there's got to be a huge fucking ladder, but they done it like
50-foot ladder.
Yeah, they've done some shit like that where like 5 guys will carry a big ass ladder down the tracks and like. I don't know, man. That shit.
So how did you like learn to do this stuff? Because I mean, obviously, like, there's no online class for how to scale scale the pyramids of Giza, but like, obviously, I'm sure you feel like you've gotten better at it over time.
Yeah.
Were you like starting out and like doing smaller things and like progressing and feeling you were progressing and like were you intentionally like I have it in my head basically doing like the American Ninja challenge-y kind of stuff to like get physically better at doing that kind of stuff? Or?
I mean, like being in the army and stuff and just in general, like generally I was always in good shape, but it's more of like learning the inner workings of like buildings and stuff like that. That's like more challenging, like the security aspect of things and like, it's just trial and error like anything else. Like when you first go into it, like you're like, okay, a construction site, a lot of them relatively easy, like it's like, all right, if I can get in on a day where there's workers not there or night and I make it up, I can sit and take shots and whatever, okay. a hotel or a residential building, not as easy, but still easier than something like an office building or a bank building.
Yeah.
So there's all these tiers of like different things that I wanted to shoot that I had to start learning, like how do I social engineer my way into like a bank building or like a high security building or like, and you just start getting more proficient with like access that way.
That was something that was really fun to talk with Emmett about. My favorite story that he had, and I'm sure you have some good ones about this, was he said that he had one particular story where they were coming down from a roof and the person was like, where are you guys coming from? And I think it was two of them. And he told them like, we met up with a girl we met on Tinder to have a threesome.
Yeah. He did say that.
I was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, like exploring with him, like we're good friends, and like, he was one of the first urban explorers who's like work I saw, and I was like, oh man, and like people have that misconception where like just because like my work is like gotten out there so much, like there's so many other urban explorers, and like, he was like one of the first ones. He pioneered a ton of shit in New York. Him and like Tom Durante, like they did a lot of roof work here that no one was doing, like, and found creative ways into buildings and stuff. No one had done shit like that, like on that level yet, and those two like did so much, and like it like access, and it is fun. Like when you get a lot better at it, you can look at it sort of like a game, because you just like anything else, you don't want to get sloppy, but you're a lot more comfortable. Like now I'm a lot more comfortable being in a place I'm not supposed to be. I'm not going to sweat. If I get approached, like I feel a lot more, and I'm thinking about it as I go along. If I encounter this, what will I say? And E is very particular about that. He's very, and like him and I together, like with the juxtaposition of like identity and stuff, it's like really good. Like you have me who's all like heavily tattooed, so I don't look like I belong in an office building. But then you have like E with his accent and stuff like that, and it's like he can get away with it.
Yeah.
And so like so when we've done stuff together, it's been really good. Like if I met E in an office building, I'd be very unassuming. I'd be like, all right, here's this guy with like some European accent that I don't,
Probably fucking smart. And, like,
he's smart, and like if he says something, it seems like I don't want to believe him. Like so. Yeah, I mean, it's just that's the biggest thing has been like you start looking at everything as like a puzzle. Like okay, I can solve this by doing X, Y, or Z. Like the Eiffel Tower, or the pyramids, or like. I did the second tallest building in the world, and that was very tough. Like, all these things, it's like, okay, timing, days. I might go on a holiday, I might go to a certain building, especially for like construction sites. I might go on a holiday so that I know workers aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
Or I know, security might not be as present, or, or for an office building, I might book an appointment. Like, I'm not here to shoot your building. I'm here to look at an office space. I'm here to find a meeting room for me and my employees, to talk in once a week or something, so it just varies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's super interesting. That's something that like I find super, that to me is like the exciting part more so than like even like getting to the roof sometimes, like the idea, like, I very much enjoy a lot of like social deception games and then things of that nature. And so I feel like that would be the part that I would enjoy is like, okay, how do I socially engineer my way to the top of this building where like everyone just feels like I'm supposed to be there? Right.
And like confidence goes a long way, confidence. There's a lot of social aspects that come into play, like what you look like and what you're wearing, and, but confidence goes a long way. Confidence and like competence of like knowing where you're at and the environment you're at, and having done like some research of like what type of building are you in and what type of companies are around and stuff like that. So that plays a big part.
I remember I have like this very distinct memory from college. I don't know why, of like me. There was like this pool room. My friends and I would go and play pool and just like fuck around. And there was one time where these like obviously people who worked for like my college came in and they took down the TV and left with it. And I was like, I don't know why they're doing this, but like for some reason in my head as they did that, I was like just thinking, I was like, I have no idea whether or not they actually work for Villanova or if they're just two random guys who are in blue jumpsuits that have names on them and tool belts. And so I just like assume that they're in the right place doing the right thing.
Right. Well, yeah, America places so much emphasis on labels and official capacity and, and because of that, like, yeah, some things are just like hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. And a lot of times too, I feel like people don't want to be the asshole who questions it. Like, I feel like we even have that sometimes with like we live in a building with a doorman and, there's like 2 levels of like doors you have to get into our building. And like if someone's waiting on those eyes, I'm leaving. I'm not going to be like, who are you? Mm-hmm. I want to see you scan in before I hold this door open for you because I don't want to be the asshole who's like, oh no, you're supposed to be here. My bad. Yeah. And so it's way easier to just be like, oh, they seem like they're supposed to be here.
Right. And that person that's like waiting outside the door for you to open it unassumingly, like could be me. Like, like we could look at your residential building and be like, this is a fine viewpoint of New York. And like, we need a way in, like, so we're going to wait for Andy to come out and we're going to slide in, or we're going to wait for Andy to go into the elevator and fuck, we lost our key card. Like, can you scan us up or whatever, just whatever, so there's a lot of good
Have you ever tried to do like a food delivery thing? As I like think through different ways, I feel like you could totally show up with like
the penthouse. They ordered 2 Joes.
So now so I'll be honest, like I've thought about that so much, and now like I just moved into a building with a doorman, and I've been watching my own building.
Yeah, like to learn almost, right?
To learn all of the things. Like I've been legit watching my concierge and like watching what happens when someone comes in with food, and I'm like, dude, in plain clothes with a DoorDash bag in the right apartment number, you might be able to get into the majority of high security residentials in New York City.
100%.
Because if I'm going to
fill it with all your camera gear,
that's it, and put it on.
Like, oh, I got food.
Yes,
you go it up and it's all there.
I'm going to apartment 5218. Okay, just sign your name here. I'm signing a bullshit name, and now I'm on my way up to one of the top floors where I will slip into your stairwell and then.
And it's so easy too now with like Street Easy and stuff. You decide what building it is, you get the address. You Google the building, you see every listing for rental that's ever existed. Mm-hmm. You find one that is rented. You like can do it so easy. And like for our building, they don't even call us to confirm that we ordered food. Yeah. Like, I just see like the Uber guys outside and they're up in a minute and that's it. And like they don't even confirm with us. It really wouldn't be hard.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like it is one of those things where I'm always looking for new ways to just get in. And the thing is like I would hate it because of ease and convenience. Like that's the easiest way past a lot of security. Mm-hmm. Is like the things that they do for convenience sake. You know, but
food's getting cold.
Yeah,
he's not gonna be happy when these pizzas are cold.
Yeah, exactly. And like I know too that like the time of being able to do this it's not finite. People have been urban exploring for decades. The earliest of like graffiti writers and stuff are like the true pioneers of this movement. And like, as security evolves, urban exploring will evolve. People will get way better at accessing, being able to hack into databases. I can see it now. Like it will have to be that way. Mm-hmm. Shut off cameras. It will just have to be that way. And I know parts of the world where they're already doing stuff like this, where they might spend weeks or months just doing things to get into a spot, and it's amazing. And that's more like metro stuff, but it's amazing to see like the dedication,
Yeah.
Like,
do you think it's easier or harder to socially engineer people in foreign countries versus America?
Depends on if you're white or not, to be honest.
Well,
like if you're going to Europe, and like if you're going to like an Asian country, there's a huge amount of privilege you have if you're white. Like, they won't ask questions. They'll assume you're a Westerner and you have money and you're there because you're out there on business or something like that. Whereas if you're brown or darker skinned, like, you could be a worker, or you could, like, you know, like, there's more suspicion there, you know. In Europe, like, it depends. Like, they have countries where it's an active urban exploring scene, and so they've seen things multiple times. And, like, I haven't found things too difficult in most of the European countries I've been to, you know, but I haven't done a lot of social engineering there yet.
Okay.
You know, so, but across the world in, like, Asia and stuff like that, you know, I've seen it in action, where it's like, there's American privilege, there's white privilege for sure. It's like, you know, they just think that you're supposed to be wherever, or that you're supposed to be allowed to be wherever, you know. And he has talked about this when he's gone to Mexico or South America. He's like, it's so easy for me, you know. So it just depends. There's all these social dynamics that come into play.
Yeah, he was talking about some of the Mexico City
Yeah.
shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were like excited to watch.
Yeah.
People were watching and like bribing police, and they're like,
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I haven't had to bribe anybody yet, but, like, it could go that way, you know, like, or we have gone to places where it's like, we should think about maybe bringing bribe money just in case things go south, you know, but it's not gone. No. Egypt was one of those places. We had some bribe money on us, you know, but we didn't need it. Like, we executed.
Man, Egypt, I'm so poorly traveled as an individual. Like, I've been to Croatia, Ohio, and then like 6 major U.S. cities.
Yeah.
There's no, like, I'm trying to, like, conceptually put myself in that pyramid in the desert, and it's crazy.
It's definitely a place that I want to go.
It's beautiful.
How are the guard towers there? You said they're like, I imagine
they're
like
booths. They're like booths on the ground.
Oh, they're not like a watchtower where they're up.
They're like sitting in a booth on the ground underneath like a lamppost.
Okay.
Most of the time they're sitting outside though, you know, and they're armed and like.
And they have a license to shoot.
They do. They can shoot you if you're on, you know, and it's important to note too that, like, some people will look at the pyramid climb as disrespectful to culture and history, and I would have to disagree for a couple of reasons. Like, people were climbing the pyramids all the time. It used to be a legal thing to where people could go up the pyramids as a tourist attraction, and if you get to the top of the pyramids, there are thousands of names and thousands of languages from people that have gone to the top of the pyramid. So it's not like no one is going there to be like, fuck you guys. Like, it's like, no, we want to share an experience that thousands of other people got to share, and we're there just to shoot. We're not there to deface it. We're not there to do anything like that. So I should note that too. Just like when we're shooting, we're not there to steal things. I mean, the things we've seen in some of these buildings and stuff like that, like, you know, it's incredible. Like, in the wrong hands, it could be very bad, you know, and like, but like, that's nothing we ever promote. Like, we just want to take our photos and leave. Like, that's it. So it is important to note that too.
No, I definitely appreciate that from like everybody in that clique who just they're looking at it through like sustainability lens of like, we want to keep doing this.
We want to keep doing this.
Having the privilege to climb these structures. We don't want, like, even with like lock picking versus bolt cutters, like stuff like that, where he's like, I'm not going to destroy.
That's big for both of us. Like, you know, like, I have, like, I mean, like, I got taught to lockpick when I was in SEER school in the Army. So, like, I was 19 going through SEER school. It's just one of the hardest schools in the military. And, like, they were teaching us to lockpick with, like, bobby pins and, like, shit like that. And, like, hide them inside our uniform, like, cut slits and, like, sew them back and, like, you know, like, hide them in there. And, like, like I could pick my way out of handcuffs in front of me, behind me, like, all types of stuff. That was, like, where I first started. And then when I got into urban exploring, I got a lot better. And, like, now this year I want to get, like, insanely good to where I can just defeat any lock, you know.
Do you like buy practice locks to like you just buy the highest end whatever that you want to? You know, maybe you see it in a building, so you buy it, bring it
home, bring it home, and like practice on it. Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, I have friends that err on like the destroying side of things, and I have friends that err on like we don't want to touch anything. And I don't judge either one, you know, like, and this is like not going to be a popular opinion in my community, but I don't judge either one because I also like when part of it is like after what I went through, I was like, you know, this country will do anything to protect fucking property over like, but will completely try to annihilate me as a human being. So, you know, like I'm part of me is like, if I wanted to just destroy this fence and get into the train yard, like, you know, I don't know. But part of me is like, okay, it's already an illegal hobby. So there's already crime involved. You just have to choose what you want to do and accept responsibility for it, you know.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if you accept responsibility for your actions, like
that's the biggest thing, you know. Like me personally, like I like going about things in a clean and quiet way. You know, like you said, to where we can come back, you know. But I also know explorers that are doing things with like Metro and stuff like that, where it's like they're on a side of exploring where you can't always pick your way into something, you know. They might be taking a fucking like grinder to a wall to like get into a tunnel or something. It's hardcore in some places and some things, and like you have to choose what you want. You know, and if you're responsible for it and you're honest about it, that's all I care about. I'm not here to police anybody's art. I just want to, you know, I'm just like, as long as you own who you are and what you are, you know, so.
So I know we haven't even mentioned the phrase NFT yet, but I guess now might be a good time to do that. So I remember your entry in NFTs like very vividly. It was, in my head at least, late June, early July.
Yes.
I met you through a Twitter space, and I read the New York Times article. It's pinned your profile.
Yes.
And I was like, holy shit. Like, I haven't seen anything like this in anything that I've collected.
Yeah.
And I was like, we got to talk to you on a space.
Yeah.
We got to hear more about this.
Yeah.
And like, how did you find NFTs, and how did you actually get onboarded into the space?
So I was, well, let's see, it would have been March of 2021. I was locked up and we were looking for ways to pay my bond. So we had got it was set at 400,000 at 10%. Like when they had this emergency bond hearing, they raised my bond to this fucking crazy amount. And in that, like we have all of the recordings and stuff from that court hearing. You know, like the reason was like my military training made me too dangerous to let out because I could be a flight risk or I could hurt someone, and we didn't know what my intentions were. You know, I had no criminal record. I was honorably retired, you know, and so now we're fighting against this like pretty much impossible bond. Like my family doesn't have any money. I'm running out of savings. You know, I had only paid one lawyer. I now had 4 and would have 5 and had not, and they're all super good, and which means they're expensive by default. And I did not, they had all been doing it off of good faith because they believed in the case. So I was fortunate enough there. My boy Christian was managing my phone when I was in. So I had my phone shipped to him. Like when we recovered it from the police, I had it shipped to him. We did the password reset and stuff over the phone and all this stuff. And he was like, yo, like I'm seeing these things called NFTs. Like maybe we sell some of your work as NFTs to like pay legal stuff. I was like, that sounds cool. But we couldn't figure it out over a jail phone, like how to set up a wallet.
You didn't have a screen.
No, there's nothing. We're like, I was like, that's dope. Sure. I have no fucking clue what you're talking about. And I was like, what the fuck is an NFT? Because when I got locked up, I'd never heard of it. And then I get out and I see people on Twitter like dabbling in this. And I'm like, that it clicked then because I did not, it clicked for multiple reasons. I get out, I lose my car when they arrest me on my way back from Louisiana. Like, they illegally seized my Volvo and like my other shit. So I had fucking nothing. And I'm like, I was on an ankle monitor, so I couldn't leave my dad's apartment. My dad's apartment was already not a safe environment for me to be in anyway. So I needed to get money to get out whenever they would take me off the ankle monitor. And like, I had no money to pay my lawyers. So I was just like, it was just like an impossible situation, to be honest with you. But then I had to ask myself, like, at every single stage of like what I was going through, it was like, how do I win in this stage? Like, at least to as much as possible, right? Like the New York Times article and stuff like that. Every article that came out, it was like me, first of all, like motivating my lawyers and like building this small team of support on the outside from just phone calls on the inside, you know? I was like, I can't win this legally yet because they're 5 steps ahead of us, have me trapped in here on bond. Like, it's an age-old tactic to get me to plea out to something that I didn't do. And so I can only win by starting to get this out to the world, like, and then put public pressure on them to do what's right, you know, to do right by me. So I had called every fucking person I knew that could possibly help. And eventually, like Dave Phillips from the New York Times, I called a friend here in New York. He's like, my upstairs neighbor works for the Times. I said, just mention it to her, right? He mentions it to her. She mentions it to Dave Phillips. Dave Phillips takes an interest in the story, looks at the Cincinnati Enquirer articles that I had also, like I told my lawyers, that we need local press. Like, let's get working on this. And so we did that. And we started building a trail, you know, and then we were like, we need something bigger. And at that point, a friend, another person had stepped in to like handle like crisis communication and stuff, and like was doing it for no charge, and like, and so it was like a miracle. It was like every single time I needed something, like someone would come out of the blue that I didn't fucking know, and they're like, we heard about this, we want to help, from a friend of a friend, from a phone call you made. And so then they were blocking the New York Times from coming into the jail and interviewing me, so I had to do it the day after I got out. So and then it will come out 2 months later in June. But during that period, I was like, okay, you know, I have my $8,000 left in savings. I was like, what do I need? I was like, I was allowed out for like 2 hours a day on this ankle monitor to go outside of like this. I had like a small radius I couldn't go outside of except for these 2 hours. And it was like useless. Like, how am I supposed to work? You know?
2 hours.
2 hours.
And probably, you know, 30 minutes to an hour would be a commute somewhere.
Yes.
And so
with no car.
You
know? Real
quick, do you want to, for everyone who's listening who isn't aware, give a little bit more background to why you were locked up in general? And
Yeah. So I November of 2020, I climbed Great American Tower in Cincinnati, Ohio, the tallest building in my city. I had only been out of the Army 7 months, and was now pursuing my dream of photographing full time. I'm like selling prints for like $150 at the most, like door dashing and doing other stuff. I go on this climb. I climb that night. What I didn't know was I passed a security camera on the top floor. They saw me on it. There was a police response, like a heavy police response, like 20 officers. And I was up shooting on the crown of the building. Come back in, leave the building. No, like not arrested or anything. So I had been like moving around the country doing my work like normal. I left to go south, and then from Florida I went to Louisiana. From Louisiana I went to Texas. I linked up with a friend in Texas, and we were going to take a rental car out west to like go to Las Vegas, Nevada, where I was going to shoot my first product shoot, you know, make a little bit of money. And I was like, all right, like this might be sustainable. Like, I'm selling some prints. I'm like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing this. I don't have a lot of money or much money at all, but like I got a little bit of savings, and like, you know, so on our way to between when I climbed on November 27th to December 17th of 2020 when I was arrested, the local detective that was head of the central business district there takes So it goes to FBI, Homeland Security, and they identify me. They identify my military background, special operations. They identify PTSD diagnosis and like other things I was diagnosed with, and essentially decide that, it's not very clear what the motive was or whatnot. Like, people have debated that left and right, and I can't still to this day, I can't tell anybody that I know for sure what this man's motive was, but put out a warrant for me for armed robbery. So I'm not armed. I don't own any firearms on record. Like, I don't, I have no violent history. I have nothing like that. So, but the only way that he could justify that amount of force was to put forth this narrative to them as if I was something that
you were
was
really
not.
dangerous and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And in a post 9/11 America, and me being racially ambiguous and having the background, it's not very hard for them to do that. Mm-hmm. People think that it is, but America will surprise you over and over again. It is not very hard for them to do that. I'm here to tell you, ask questions and learn. It's very easy, and it's overwhelming how much power one police officer had, because he had the FBI, he had Homeland Security, he had Arizona State Police, all at his disposal to come and find me. I'm driving I'm out in the desert photographing, So I'm driving towards Flagstaff, Arizona on I-40 West. Interstate is shut down. I didn't know it was shut down, but I'm coming to find out that it was. I see a helicopter spinning. I see cop cars everywhere. I'm thinking there's a fucking terrible accident and this is a medevac.
Yeah.
And that's not what it was. They started driving backwards down the highway. I was sick that day. My friend, she was driving. I was sitting in the passenger seat, slumped. I had a fever. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on, And I started seeing them look into cars, and they're armed with assault rifles. And I'm like, something just feels off. And my mom had called me 2 days prior and was like, oh, Cincinnati police, they came to my door and they wanted to talk to you, And I was like, oh, I was like, well, when I come back from this trip, sure, I'll talk to them, And so I started asking myself questions about that. But, this is a nationwide manhunt, Helicopter, literally attack helicopter, 20 at least 15 to 20 officers, dogs, fucking everything, right? Protocol for murderers, Literally, this is what I was told when I was put in the cop car. So I'll rewind. Then I start to see the car get surrounded. Then, the sergeant comes and orders me out of the car, said my name, with the bullhorn, and was like, if you move, we will kill you, verbatim, So I, I'm laying face down there on the highway. I have no fucking clue what's going on. They pull me up. They pull out a piece of paper. My face is on it. They're like, I get this spiel from the officer, whatever you're going through, you need to, you need to fight your demons. And I'm like, bro, I'm not fucking fighting demons. I am, but I'm not in the sense of
not what you're thinking.
Not what you're thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because they're looking, they're like, oh, this dude's wanted for armed robbery, right?
Yes.
They don't know. They weren't in Cincy. They're like,
yes.
Oh shit, this guy's
it's a game of telephone that turns into fucking with my entire life. It's easy to laugh about it now, but when you break it down, it's it's so fucking crazy. And especially when you look at past history of George Floyd and all of these other black men that and given the fact that I have the military background that I did. So if I'm going to make any moves, if I'm to do one thing wrong, it's all right, now I'm laying here full of bullets. And what did I do? I climbed a building in Cincinnati and shot it and embarrassed their police department a little bit, so I get put in the cop car and they're like, dude, they're like, well, we were told you were wanted for armed robbery. And they were like, this is only stuff we do for America's Most Wanted, murderers, fucking heavy drug traffickers, And I'm just sitting here what the fuck? So I get taken to the jail. They deny me at the jail because I'm sick and it's COVID time. They take me to the hospital. They chain me to a hospital bed for 5 days with an officer in the room. When the officer left the room, I convinced the nurse to teach me how to call out on the hospital phone instead of just calling down to get like food and stuff. I call out to my dad, and my dad is a situation. I need a lawyer. He talks to a friend who knows a guy who became like my lawyer, Lawrence Haas, and who literally this case wouldn't have worked with any other lawyer. I mean, everything in my case is like nothing short of miraculous. Like he's this young dude. He's like full of energy. And like, I was, he's a lawyer. He errs on the cautious side of things. But I was always like, dude, this is going to be something that's like bigger than life. Like as the case went on, I was like, I guarantee you we're going to win this thing. And I need you to like stay in there with me. And he did, And so then I started like having my dad call people and just started stacking numbers. I wrote all these numbers on this blue piece of paper, and I still have it to this day. It's like in pencil, all this faded pencil of like these different numbers. I started building a network, and then I got put into the jail in Flagstaff. The first month I was in there was 23-hour lockdown every day. So I got an hour out to like shower and like call. And, I still like for first 3-4 weeks, like no real, like wasn't really told what was going on and like what was happening. Then I got told like, okay, you're being charged with multiple counts of felony burglary, and you're gonna, they're gonna have to extradite you back to Ohio. But they had arrested me on a fugitive warrant, so they could legally deny me bond, which is what they did. So I was trapped there until they decided to bring me back. They were supposed to bring me back in 45 days. First 30 days, but they kept losing my paperwork, right?
Oh, classic.
Well, what they were really doing was the detective had arrested me. They got my camera gear, they got my memory cards, they got my laptop, they got all these different things, which I'm about to get back from them, so fuck them. But like he was taking that and he was going state to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction with this same narrative that he had put out to the Arizona State Police, and was trying to convince them to charge me, so that when I did get back, if I got bond, I couldn't get out because now you have a holder in another state. And that's the way it works, is like if you have a holder in another state, well, you could pay the bond here, but now you have a holder there, so you have to get rearranged there. And like if they just keep adding on another case and another case and another case, you're never going to get out.
Yeah.
Or you're going to run out of money, right? Then you got to cop a plea and plead to something and then go to prison.
Yeah.
Right? So I get released in the general population. My first day in general population, I see the Capitol riots on the TV, and I'm like, they have me locked up for this shit, but I'm watching, this bullshit go on the TV. So I spent the next month in there, and like I started making calls because now I had more access to the phone. And they wasted, I mean, it's hard because 99% of like black men that are going through things in the justice system, they don't know what's going on with them. Like they don't know the way that the system works, the way that they're being financially trapped, like their resources or whatever. They don't really understand, but I had an understanding of it, so it made me that much more angry, right? Like the first thing was like the detective went to the news and like criminalizes me in the news, in the media, like puts out one image of me that's like 4 or 5 years old on active duty in the Army, but I'm in civilian clothes and I'm like holding a handgun. And so it's like, this is the image that they're presenting to me to the world, so that I'm guilty before I'm actually guilty, right?
Yeah, and they're totally owning the narrative.
Yeah, they're owning the narrative from the beginning.
Yeah.
So then whatever they do to me after that, it's looked at as warranted.
Yeah.
It was, portray me as hyper aggressive, saying I have counter surveillance teams on the ground, saying like, all this crazy shit, right? Like, and it was all bullshit, but it was like, all right, like I was told like this is what's happening. So I was like, okay, it's going to be this kind of thing. Like, so then I started making calls. I called a journalist friend in Detroit who had reported on me like climbing the Ambassador Bridge. And I was like, I need a favor. Like, this is what's going on. So we started getting it out in the media. And then Cincinnati Enquirer wrote the first article about it in January 2021. And, like we started stirring up some local media and whatnot. And then in February, they brought me back to Cincinnati. When they brought me back, the day before my arraignment for me to finally get bond, and You know, they had like flew me back, chained up hands and feet in the back of a commercial flight from Arizona to Houston and Houston to Cincinnati with a big ass Homeland Security agent next to me. So funny story was I get to the airport and they pull me off to the side and they're like, you know, we have a fugitive and like whatever. And this guy has to untie my vans to take him off because I'm handcuffed, hands and feet, and had to search me. And I was like, you know, I was like, one day I was like, this pair of shoes is gonna be famous.
Yeah.
Pay attention, you know. And like I felt that though. Like I meant that with my whole heart, you know. Like I never went through my shit and was like, oh man, this sucks. Like why is it got to be me? I was like, no, I will win, you know. Like, and especially because like I took it so personally. Like when I was going through it and whatnot, it's like, man, you can fuck over so many other people and I'm watching you do it, right? But like, I'm not going to let you fuck over me. Yeah. You know, like and so when I got back to Cincinnati the day before my arraignment, I sit down and I've had one conversation with Detective Jeff Ruberg, who's the one on my case, ever in my life. And it was this conversation. And we're sitting across the table, like you and Deez are sitting across the table. And he was like, you know, I'm Detective Jeff Ruberg. You know, he hits the recorder. He was like, this is case, blah, 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 blah. You're charged with blah, blah, blah. I'm here to ask you a few questions. I say, no, my attorney's not here. And he knew what he was doing, you know, pulling me down without my attorney and whatnot. And I said, no, like, I don't want to talk to you. My attorney's not here. And he turns off the recorder. And he looks me right in the eyes and he was like, you know, he's like, I just want you to know. He's like, I know you think you're getting out tomorrow, but you're not. And he was like, you're not getting out. Like, you're never getting out. He was like, I already got a warrant signed in Michigan. And he's like, I've already, you know, sent this out to at least 30 other jurisdictions. And he was like, and so what's going to happen is you're going to be charged in all these jurisdictions and have holders there. And he was like, you're just going to go state to state to state to state. And then you're just going to get sentenced and you're going to go to prison for years of your life. And I was like,
it's disgusting.
I was like, all right. You know, in my mind, I'm like, you know, you can go fuck yourself. But like, I just was like, can I go back to my cell? And I knew that day, I was like, dude, I'm like completely at war with like a man that has infinite resources at his disposal. He's already vilified me in the media. Like I got to catch up, you know, basically. And then I was also like, I had been in 2 months already, and you just got to put your mind into this mode where it's like, I might not get out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't think I was getting out in 2021. I didn't, you know, like I didn't think I wasn't going to, I didn't know what an NFT was. I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. You know, if you would have told me I would have went from doing that to being like a millionaire in 2021, I'd been like, well, there's no fucking way. I'm not even gonna make it out from these walls probably, you know? So like sure enough, like next day I went to get a rain, couldn't get out because even if I could pay the bond, I had a holder in Michigan. I had to hire an attorney in Michigan from the inside. So I had to have my lawyer do it. You know, and then we beat that case while I was still locked up. And then I was supposed to, once again, get rearranged in Ohio and just pay the bond and get out. Well, on that day, they called an emergency bond hearing with my judge out of town, appealed in front of a new judge, argued that my military experience, that the skills I had already proven to have, and that my unknown intent made me too dangerous to release to society. They bumped my bond up to $400,000. And while I was trying to get that lowered, they didn't put a case on me in Louisiana for shooting an abandoned structure, an abandoned house. Stupidest of all stupid things. But, you know, had them charge me with felony burglary for that. So it was just starting to look impossible. Like, it was like, okay, by the time I get Louisiana handled, if I do, like, I'm going to be running out of money.
I felt like this game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah, that's it. We were literally playing whack-a-mole. And I was like, man, you know, so we got the bond lowered and nothing else had been added yet. And my judge says, okay, I'll let you out on an ankle monitor to drive down to Louisiana to turn yourself in. And then you come right back here. And it's not like I could not. I was on an ankle monitor. So yeah. I drove down. Like my boys had rescued because they were looking for my car too. They were trying to find my Volvo and like collect it as evidence. My boys had drove down to Texas and brought it back to Florida, and then drove it up to Ohio when I got out, and I got in it after meeting with Dave Phillips from New York Times. I drove down to Louisiana. I drove back, and on my way back, the detective's so angry that I got out. And he didn't even have a warrant signed yet. He gave the same narrative that he gave to Arizona State Police, to Kentucky State Police, and I had shot the Roebling Bridge, and it was a misdemeanor trespass, right? But used that and the fact that he was going to get a warrant signed, illegal as shit, to have them intercept me at gunpoint in Kentucky. And because I was on an ankle monitor, they knew when I crossed the state border. Yeah. So he contacted the probation officer and was like, when he crosses here, let me know. Then he phones Kentucky State Police. Then they come and intercept me, fucking pull guns on me. Yeah, I mean, like, and I'm completely unarmed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're doing literally what the judge told you to do.
I'm unarmed on an ankle monitor.
On an ankle monitor. Right. And it's once again, it was like, okay, if I had not kept composure or whatever, it's like, who even fucking knows what could have happened?
Yeah.
You know? Then they take my car. They take the remainder of my clothes that I have. It was so shitty, man. I was left there. My dad came and got me 4 days later. Like, funny story. They let me out of the jail that night because they weren't going to keep me overnight. Like, pre-trial was like, this is useless. Like, this is a misdemeanor trespass. We're not going to fucking hold him.
Yeah.
You know? But he had told the Kentucky State Police that I wasn't supposed to get out of jail. So he was making it sound like I escaped.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy, man. You know? Like, the abuse of power is just so overwhelming, you know? But I like walk with my wallet and like no phone down to a bar in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And it's a college town. I walk into this bar and I'm like, listen, like, I have the best fucking bar story ever. Like, and I need to use somebody's phone. And I like get done telling them what I just told you guys. And I'm like, that's how I got here today. And I'm like, please, like, someone give me a fucking phone to call my lawyer. So like, this girl gives me her phone. I call my lawyer. My dad comes and gets me 4 days later, takes me back home. That's when I started getting into NFTs. Okay, so to set the scene, I'm at home in my dad's tiny apartment.
Still on an ankle monitor.
Still on an ankle monitor. My next court date was like out in May. We had asked to remove the ankle monitor. They said no. We argued that they were endangering my life with it, which they were. They still had police outside my dad's apartment multiple days a week during the day waiting on me to fuck up. Like, it was, you know, it was really crazy. So then I'm at home and I'm like, dude, like, all right, like, let's just fucking grind, you know? Like, so yeah. I was like, I need a laptop. On my couple hours out, I had my dad drive me. I bought a laptop. I came back and I just got back on Twitter and I was like, I saw NFTs like Judy Lindsay got me into, she gave me a foundation invite, you know, and I got on foundation and like I minted the first couple pieces. Cactus was around like collecting hella shit at that time. Shout out Vince, yeah.
Just buying everything.
Just buying fucking everything. And like he bought my pieces and like, you know, talked to me about my case and like really supported me that way. And like it gave me money to like start paying lawyers or just like buy clothes or like whatever, you know. And then like I was selling prints elsewhere. I just stayed online and I was like, fuck it. I'm going to make it work. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and like people talk about like work ethic and stuff like that. It's like, no one will never understand how hard like the amount of work I had to do then was, because it was not just like, it's already enough to have, at this point I had 1, 2, 3, 4 cases and a 5th one that would get added at the end of May, which would total out to like 30-something charges, 20-something felonies. And it was like, dude, I have like 40 years of life over my head, you know? And like, I'm no way out of the house, like no money, 5 lawyers to pay. And the majority of like, and it was just like, but still like, I feel like I have to keep going, like for my integrity, for my art, for like what I love, for who I am, like I have to keep going. So like, it would be enough, like just waking up every day and trying to be functional, you know, with that amount of stress, like would kill most people, you know, but to wake up and be like, fuck everything. Like I'm going to take this and I'm going to make something beautiful out of it is art in and of itself. You know, that's what we do as artists. Like we're alchemists, you know, like everything we experience, feel, like we take that and we create from it, you know? So I was making a living, breathing art piece out of my life, you know, and that's how I approach life too. And so I shared on Twitter. I was like, okay, I shared on Instagram and Twitter. I was like, all right, Twitter is like way better algorithmically for me, you know, and I was like, there's this intersection of like tech and business and like art happening here. And I was like, and I don't need, you know, I had like started talking to a gallery in Cincinnati and I was selling prints and like, I was like, I don't need these people's approval to sell my shit either too. Like I can sell it if people think it's fucking amazing and want to put a higher value on it, then I can just make that money, you know, and I don't have to like take my little time I do have and try to convince people why they should support me. You know, I had a little GoFundMe going that I think reached around like $20,000. I didn't touch it. And I kept shooting, or I didn't keep shooting yet. I started shooting again when they took me off the ankle monitor. But so I sold a couple pieces and then I sold a piece at the end of April. I sold another piece right after that. And then I was like minting my third NFT at the end of May and like get a knock at the door. And was freaking the fuck out because, like, you know, my dad and my family, like my younger brothers, like, there's a lot of illegal shit in his apartment, and just from the lifestyle that he was involved in, and like I had no other place to go, so I was literally fucking trapped. And you know, the detective was out there with 15 other officers, weapons drawn, coming in to arrest me for a third time, or for third time now at gunpoint, unarmed. To haul me off again, and there was nothing I could do, and I almost cracked that morning. They're knocking at the door, and like I won't get into details, but I legitimately I thought of doing harm to him in that instance because I was at such a breaking point. I was like, dude, I can't fuck it. Like no matter what I do, this man's gonna be trying to hunt me for no fucking reason. Mm-hmm. And like the Philadelphia case, they had like placed like there's like 5 charges, like 3 high-level felonies. I mean, it ended up being like a useless case. Like it was tossed after the first hearing, you know? But on paper it looked fucking horrible. Yeah. You know?
Looked like you were a master criminal.
Criminal conspiracy, felony burglary, felony trespass, definitely like all these different things. 2 F1s, like an F3, like heavy charges, you know. So I they come in, they take me on a Friday, so I can't get arraigned till Monday.
Of course.
They try to get the judge to put a high bond on me again so they could keep me in and then extradite me to Philly. Like every single way it was like it wasn't like it was psychological torture. It was like, I have this power over you, and I'm going to remind you every single time. I will either drain you financially, or I will drain your mental intestinal fortitude to where you break and you do some shit that justifies the narrative I've been putting out about you. Mm-hmm. You know? But like at the end of the day, it just became more and more personal to me, you know? Like to where I just don't, when I commit to something, I just don't quit on it. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know how to, you know? And so I was like determined, like I'm not going to break, you know? And I spent like the next week locked up again. I wouldn't get arraigned until Thursday because we had to get a lawyer in Louisiana or in Pennsylvania first. And on my last day in there on May 26th, 2021, I had like my worst moment. Like I'm very like spiritually in tune with myself. I know when I'm going through transition. I know when I'm going through like, like I had all these different feelings. Whenever before I got out, I had a feeling I was like, I'm getting out of here. I was like, I just know. And then the judge was like, we're going to lower the bond. We're going to let you out. I'm like, all right, And then the day before I put out Where My Vans Go, I had this like life-changing trip. And I was like, fuck it. I was like, I'm moving into the light now. Like my life is about to completely change forever. And I felt that the day before. But this day, on May 26th, we had gotten arraigned at 9:00. I was supposed to get out by early afternoon. It had stretched on to the afternoon. The guy I was in the cell with, they pulled him out of there and he left. At one point, they called my name, but then they said, never mind. And I was sent back to the cell. And then like the day was just stretching on. It was getting close to evening time and like I couldn't sleep. And I hadn't slept, you like almost never sleep before court because your fucking balls are in your stomach and you're like thinking about like what the fuck's going to happen to me. And I had this horrible pain like come over my entire body where like I couldn't move. I like fell out of the bed, like on the ground crying, and like was like I was like, this is like the worst shit passing through me right now. Like I can't even put it into words. It was like so horrible how bad it hurt. And there was no scientific like reason for it, but like in my mind and in my spirit, I was like, I think if you make it through today, it's going to be up from here. Like it will be, And so I was like laying there, writhing in pain on the cell floor, like crying, had like a puddle of tears. And I could not explain what was going on, but it's like the last bit of darkness and the shit passing through me. And I made it, and then they called me. And I was sitting outside. I remember I was sitting outside, and some lady gave me a cigarette to hide for me to. She gave me a cigarette and like a lighters, and because I helped her hide from her sugar daddy who bailed her out. And so I was sitting there on the steps smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, damn, like the air felt so good. And I was just like, man, I wonder if I'm gonna make it through this. Like I had so many moments where I was like, this will probably kill me. Like if it doesn't kill me, like physically, if I don't get killed by the police, like just the stress, like I don't know if it's like it feels like it's killing me off, 10 days later, the New York Times article came out, and like it was the first time in months that I was actually hurt,
Mm-hmm.
Like the article, it had some things like that were a little inaccurate. I didn't put a fucking sticker up on top of Great American Tower and Jeff climb up there and that's how they found like that was bullshit. But the article touched on the things that were important,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it let people choose for themselves how they saw it. And I got to speak about my work and about my purpose and like why I do things. And at the end, they said, is everything illegal or immoral? Like, do you really think that,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm not here. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not, whatever. I was like, I just want you to know that like, this is my place, my piece, whatever. And that was the thing too, is like, I should touch on the mental health aspect of it because when I started shooting, yes, there was a mental health aspect of like I was going through heavy depression and stuff like that. But a lot of that came from like displacement, from like feeling like this is no longer where I'm supposed to be. Like socially, consciously, I could no longer go on and in a good conscience serve the United States of America. I don't know where I'm supposed to be in life. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing now. I thought this was going to be my career. Like I'm black and I don't feel at home here. I feel like at any day when I step out of uniform, something terrible can happen to me. Not even a year later, it would. Like everything I felt was like justified. And I started shooting because of that, because of the displacement that I felt with that and the depression that came along with it, And it was like, okay, this might not feel like home, but when I go shoot, that feels like home, right? Yeah. And when it came down to court, it like the thing that was so incredibly like hurtful and stuff to me was that like we didn't even have to bring mental health into it until they took it and tried to use it against me. You know, like yeah, I'm diagnosed with depression and PTSD, and like, you know, like I've gone through so many different things, but like the PTSD I got from this experience is like a million times worse, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm so fucked in the head from all this shit that I've gone through at their hands, not at the military's, right? Like my friends going through like suicide and stuff like that was not half as bad as like this shit, you know? And then we had to use that as a defense, you know? Like in court and in the press and whatnot. And basically like, here you guys are trying to make a fucking monster out of me. And I have to take this and like defend my actions and defend why like this is my place of home. And, you know, I felt like the article did a good job of touching on it, but it didn't get to the point of like, I didn't start shooting. I started shooting because of the feelings of displacement. I started shooting because of like, you know, my identity and how fissured it was at that time, and how consciously, even to this day, like being a conscious Black man here, like that's where I find home, you know? That's what allows me to walk around on the ground and stay sane, you know? And instead of it being this whole narrative of like, of everything they used against me from the military and stuff like that. And so I always wanted to like, now I get the chance to like set that straight and whatever. It was like, we had to use that defense because they used that to attack me, to vilify me, you know? It wasn't like I was like, you know, like going into court and like just saying that, you know? So, the New York Times article, first time I feel heard, you know? I had been selling pieces. I get on a super rare shortly after that. I sell a piece or two. And I made some print sales off the back of the article. I got some money added to the GoFundMe, and I hadn't touched it on purpose because I didn't know what I wanted to do with the money yet. And my lawyers were like, it's okay, we're not going to ask you for payment yet. But I knew the time would come eventually where it's like, I got to pay him something, you know? And back in February, like, or back in March, when we were at like a low point, they gave me the $400,000 bond. I'm sitting there, like, I get an attorney visit. I'm sitting there, like, between me and my attorney. And I was like, Lawrence, he was about to quit. Like, he was like, dude, I don't know. He was like, they're 5 steps ahead of us. Like, I don't know. I was like, Lawrence, I was like, it's history. Like, I just felt it. I was like, we're in the middle of history. If we beat this, like, I feel like my art's going to go places like we can't even imagine. And I was saying this before I ever like had a dime from like, you know, art. So I was like, this is like it, you know. I was like, you just got to stick in there with me because like I'm not going to quit, you know. And I was like, one way or another, I've already been told internally it's going to work out. So I need you to hang in there with me. And I was like, and I made him a promise. I said, if you get me out of here, he was like, this is easily a $50,000 to $100,000 case. I'm sitting there like, well, I got $9,000 left. And I was like, but I made him a promise. I said, if you get me out of here, I promise you I'll pay you in full. I was like, don't ask me how I'll do it. Just know that I'll get to it and like, I'll do it, right? And so like I would end up doing that, you know, like
That's awesome.
I stacked. I was, because I was staying with my dad, and my dad wasn't asking me for much. You know, I helped out on an apartment. I stacked and saved. I stacked all the ETH I made. I stacked the money I had in cash, and the money I got from the GoFundMe, and the money I got from like print sales and stuff like that. And then, come July, I made a couple of sales on Super Rare, and then I bought a punk. I spent all the money I had. Like, I legitimately, huge risk. No logical sense. Punk floor was like 15 or 20 ETH, right? I bought this punk, and because I've been watching this space, and I was like, this is social currency, right?
Yeah.
And I was like,
that investment is worth more.
It's worth
for your
more.
art and your brand and who you are.
And I was betting on myself that like I'm gonna keep selling art.
Yeah.
So I'll bounce back, right? I spent all my ETH on this fucking punk, right? And I remember thinking, I was like, bro, so I should note after the arrest in May, they took me off the ankle monitor because the judge basically said, you're fucking with this man's life. And she actually, for the first time, helped me after that New York Times article. And then the next day I went out and shot. So I never stopped shooting because I'll get into that in a second. But I bought this punk. And the next month I flip it for I hit D's and I was like, is this a good flip? It was like
like $100,000 or something.
Yeah, it was a 100 flip. And I was like, should I ask for more?
I think I just probably told you to sell it.
You were like, sell it.
Yeah.
And it was right after Where My Vans Go. Okay, so I get into Where My Vans Go. That Soul Piece Stud super rare. The day before Where My Vans Go, I was like, I don't see many photo collections, and it wasn't at that time. But I was like, I have this cohesive set of shots I've taken as a collection. I want to mint it. And the day before, I was like, fuck it. I'm so angry. Like, I want to go to trial. I'm not who they're saying I am. My lawyer's like, I feel like a 70-30 chance we could win. Like, maybe they could get you on a burglary here because of this aspect or whatever for Great American Tower. And then we told them, we were like, we don't want a deal. Isaac's not taking prison time. He's not taking probation. And, every single time they're just like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And I'm like, dude, I fucking will not quit until I walk out of here a free man to be left the fuck alone, right? So we get to the end in December, and they had put a deal on the table for 2 years of a probation-based program where I would be free to travel. I have to go to therapy, and if after a year everything's fine, there's no issues, I could be let off. I was still angry and wanted to go to trial, but then I was like, this is a surefire way of me just
not going to prison,
no risks, whatever. So I took it and I wasn't convicted of anything. All the charges were held and would be dismissed when the probation period was over with. But if I was caught, I would go to prison. If I was caught or charged, if I was charged or convicted of something else, I would have to take whatever the judge decided would be a sentence and go to prison. So a huge amount of weight on my shoulders to where it was like, I was still out in the world shooting because I was never going to stop, and I was never going to let them tell me I was wrong for creating my work. And because it was my way of actively saying fuck you, I get to choose who I am as a human being and as an artist. And as artists, I'm not going to say the rules mean very little, but you're the greatest artist of all time. They know when to color in the lines and they know when to color out, and they know that whatever they have going on inside as a vision is greater than any person, any human being here on earth. I don't care. It does not compare to whatever vision you have going on inside as an artist. You follow that and you follow that only because that's what's going to get you through to success or to whatever. That's what's going to get you through any tough situation. It was not the thought of money or anything like that. It was no, this is my artistic vision. I won't let you take this from me. I won't let you take what I love from me, right? That's what pulled me through the worst fucking days of my life, or pulled me through wanting to give up, or pulled me through wanting to kill myself, or pulled me through, when I'm, staring down the barrel of a gun and I want to just fucking kill the officer. That's what pulls you through, that you have to have that type of conviction. And, I never stopped being an artist the whole time. When I was locked up, I was writing. I was writing on cell walls. I was writing on inmate request forms. I was writing in pen pads and everything I can get my hand on, I kept being an artist. I kept creating from whatever I had going on the inside. And there was never even a thought of success. It was just I have to do this because this is the only thing that's going to keep me grounded and sane. And then I completed this past year just here in December, and I never stopped shooting. You know, the day after I took the ankle monitor out was Memorial Day weekend. I went to Chicago, I climbed, I shot, you know, and I never quit. I just kept going, you know. So that was like NFTs in a nutshell. I mean, and then 2022, like the open edition, and like that was.
Yeah, why don't we talk for a little bit before we run out of time here about the Bail Project and your open edition and kind of where you've been since then after Where My Vans Go.
Yeah, so.
And feel free to drink some too. I know you've been talking a bunch. You grab some water.
No, it's been good.
So I wanted to do an open edition. Like, we weren't yet in the bear market that we are in now.
Yeah.
I think like the floor for Where My Vans Go was like 60 ETH at the time. And like I was having some of the biggest one-of-one sales in my life. We had like the 100 ETH sale for Where My Vans Go around that time. And like the Sotheby's sale was like 96 ETH. Like it was a crazy time. And I was like, I want to do an open edition, but I want to do one that like is very personal to me, you know? And so I was like, April 9th, 2021 was the day I got out. And here I am a year later. And it was like, wow, what a fucking 365 days, you know,
One
right?
rotation around the sun.
Yeah. One rotation around the sun that felt like a lifetime, you know? So then I was like, all right, I want to do something that allows me to go right back to where I suffered at and just say, fuck you guys, you know? I'm never going to get like people, I think people look at like success and they think it negates so much, and like it does not, you know? Like I wish people could see like the amount of like grief and like stuff I've had to process, you know, because it's like, it was already traumatic enough to go through, but then when you add success into the mix, you add like being poor, now having money, you know, like the brokenness that comes from that, and like hyper visibility from being like not visible, like all these different things, you know, it was too much to handle in, you know, 1 year, 2 years, you know, like I'm just now, like I literally went to my first in-person therapy appointment yesterday, you know, before coming to the dinner, like to like break down this shit. And I like told my therapist, like, this is my last 2 years of life. And just looking at me like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, all right, this is gonna be
going on. You know, you know, he's like, you know, I used to pray for times like this, you know, like getting to flex his therapist muscles. But like, I feel like I don't know, man. I mean, like, I'll never get to, I won't say never, but like, there was so much anger and sadness of like, man, you know, this whole time, like I went through all this shit just to end it. And it ended up, I mean, yeah, it ended good, but like, you know, no one was on my side until like the pages started turning and like it was out in the public eye. There was all of this, like all the time I had to fight being fucking invisible and like the shit that it does to your mental, and like, and then just realizing that like this is America, and even if I get successful, I can't escape this shitty ass atmosphere. You know, like I could still walk down the street tomorrow and this guy could, you know, swoop up on me and do whatever the fuck he wants to me. And like, you know, just the breaking down of that, you know, and like first day out was my way of saying like, I just want you to know I'm here. Mm-hmm. I'm not going anywhere. Like this is the first major thing I'm doing. But like, I'm going to be a thorn in your fucking side for the rest of my life. Whether it's just talking about my story, whether it's fighting for, you know, bail reform or prison abolition or whatever, like that's the things that matter to me, you know, because I just want to be a free individual. I just want to be free to create my art, you know, and have it be appreciated. I could give a fuck about $1. Like I never had money. And then when I got it, it was like, oh, this is a nice thing. But then it was like, it was never what I was in it for, you know? And like, you don't make art with your whole life hanging in the balance and like knowing if I fuck up once, if I get caught, you don't do that because you're like, oh, I might sell this for $25,000 tomorrow or 50 ETH tomorrow. You do that because you're fucking convicted, you know? Because like you can't fucking live without that shit, you know? And it was like, for me, it's like freedom is something I can't live without. Freedom to express honestly, and seeing that. And like, I wanted to work for that for other individuals. And so I partnered with the Bail Project. And when we did the open edition, it minted over 10,000 copies, and 15% of that thanks to Manifold, like I could go and, donate to the Bail Project. And now it's in a rotating fund in Cincinnati and Hamilton County, right where I was incarcerated at. I think we're close to 60 people have been freed already and given post-release help to like get reintegrated into life and like and counting, because when their cases end, because the Cincinnati Enquirer wrote an article about it, and the president of the Bail Project came and spoke. The statistics are staggering in that the majority of these people are like low-level offenders that are just poor. Their crime is being poor. They can't get out because they can't pay the bail. And if they could pay the bail and they could hire a decent attorney, they'd be fine. So you're literally stuck in there for being poor. Yeah. And that was like the worst feeling ever, like, and the conditioning that did to my brain, I should speak on this too, was horrible, because I worked so hard and was like so present and like even when I made millions of dollars off of where my vans go or off of First Day Out, like I felt horrible. I felt like I couldn't relax. I felt worse than I ever did before, because I was conditioned to feel like my security lied in like finances and stuff, because I knew what it was like for them to be able to fuck with me and do anything to me, literally anything to me, and tell me they're going to do it and then do it. And I, like, over the past year, I've had to separate from that. And the days of like, if I take a day off, if I'm not present here, it's like, is this going to hurt me in some sort of way? Like, it's like I literally wouldn't wish it on like my worst enemy, because I have so much to unpack, like mentally and emotionally, and like, because of how I was fucking traumatized. I was traumatized into thinking, like, people are like, I don't know how you did it. I was like, dude, I was fucking traumatized into thinking, if I don't raise this amount of money, I'm not going to survive. Mm-hmm. I can't pay a lawyer. If I can't pay a lawyer, the lawyer can't come fight for me. If the lawyer doesn't come fight for me, then they get to keep railroading me. Like, or I can't, if I can't pay this person, then like this is going to happen or whatever, and like I could not get out of that mindset even when I became successful. And like, I'm just now like separating from that, and it's like, I wish I would tell anyone that's like getting successful, it's like, that's not where your security lies. And like part of that lies in capitalism and lies in like how the United States has been constructed. And it's a fucking disease. And it's like, look, just do what you do for love. And like the money's going to come in and security is going to be there too. Because people gravitated to my story and my life and they wanted to fight with me because of love. It wasn't because there was a promise of, my lawyer getting paid everything I said I would pay him. And he got a piece in where my vans go and he flipped it for like 60 ETH.
That's awesome. That's sick.
Like, it wasn't about that though.
Yeah.
Did he ever,
He never knew.
He never knew, like.
Yeah, I guarantee that he didn't expect to get paid back within a year.
Yeah, he didn't.
Like,
yeah.
He didn't.
And then that's how you, like, that makes it feel so much better too when that does happen and he wins like that with you.
Yeah.
Because that he was there that wasn't ever an expectation from him.
Never.
Yeah, that's sick.
Like it never was. And so I've had to reconstruct my brain and thinking like, all right, my security's always been in doing what I love for the right reasons, and I never want to move it away from that. And for First Day Out, that's what I did. And it was such a tremendous response. And, there's been tons of asks about utility for it. And like, I never promised utility, but I will say, like, we're not going to do a burn with it, but there is something planned, and it's much better than a burn in my mind. And I'm taking my time with it because I look at First Day Out as like a lifelong project.
Yeah.
I don't look at it as something where, like, you bought this today and you wanted the 10X tomorrow, so let me do this for you. Like, no, like, that's not what I promised. And also, I didn't go through the shit that I went through just for you to tell me what the fuck to do with my art.
Yeah.
Suck a dick.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, It was not you sitting in that cell. It was not you fighting 25, 30, 40 years. It was not you doing it. And I don't want it to be you, but I want you to leave me alone and let me make my work.
Yeah.
You know, like, and if I've had the vision to build all of this, even when I've been under such tremendous pressure, I'm not under that anymore, you know, and I can build on things and build on them freely now. And like, I'm building for decades of my life. Like, I want to be doing this when I'm an old ass man, you know? And so like, that means it's the most intimate piece of art that I have, you know, to me.
I'm excited for that. As someone who minted a bunch and I'm still holding on to it, I'm looking forward to it. And I think it's such an interesting thing about people wanting utility and all of that. And like, I really feel like it's so bad for so much of the like the art space. Like, it's one thing if you had that project and you were like, listen, I'm going to do all this crazy shit with it. You guys have no fucking idea. I'm going to do all this stuff. I have these crazy plans for it and it's going to be like super valuable. Then like, sure, you don't do anything with it for a while. Like, it makes sense.
It's reasonable for people to ask questions. But when I come into the picture and I say, hey, this is what it's going to be. And the utility is that like, we're going to get people that cannot pay bond out of jail so that they have a fighting chance at a free life. Like, that's the utility for it. You know, if I choose to build other things, that's completely on me as the artist, you know, but I'm never going to promise you something up front and then be like, I can't do, like, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm just going to tell you the truth in the beginning and keep it that way.
And it's so stupid too, because it's like, no one fucking forces anyone to buy your artwork.
No. I never told you. No one held a gun to your head and said, mint the fucking open edition, man. Like, mint first day out. Like, no one did that shit.
Well, it's like, imagine the same thing. It's just like this fucking perverted crypto stuff. And I think it'll all get washed out over time.
I got a good thing to hop off of you, too.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, think about all the prints that you sold. Imagine you got emails from everyone you sold prints to, like, hey, what the fuck? Where's my utility?
Yes.
It's hanging on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, dude.
I had an artist DM me today, and they're like, hey, can I get some advice? I'm like, yeah, sure, what's up? And they're like, so this person who bought my art is having regrets, and they're angry at me. And they asked me, like, have I ever bought art I regretted? And if so, like, have artists ever done anything for me? And I said, I've bought a lot of art I've regretted. I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've never once asked an artist for a refund. It's my mistake. I fucked up. Like, it's on me.
Right.
And this person was, like, I think relieved to hear that. But, you know, they just had I'm not going to dox them or anything, but they just had a very nice sale. Or sales. And one of the buyers is, like, mad that they bought it. And it's like, that's on you, dog. Like, you bought it. You made a decision.
It sounds like they need to practice some self-control.
To set the transaction. It's like the same thing in the community with open editions. People put all this hype into an open edition. And I always tell people, like, if you want to collect open editions for the art, don't actually mint it. Just wait a week. And if you like it for the art, you'll see, number one, the amount that it grows, and you're probably going to get at least a 25% discount. But people don't think like that in the moment, and it's just like hype, and then it puts all these unrealistic expectations on the artist when you're just trying to share this experience with as many people as possible at the most successful
and broaden your collector base and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, you opted into FOMO and now it's my fault. Okay, no, it's not. It's your fault. Like, we've all been there. I bought Cool Cats at the top. I bought Cool Cats at the top after the last Where My Vans Go drop, because I was like, this is more money than I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I'm going to ball out on Cool Cats, like Cool Cats to the moon. No, Cool Cats are in the gutter, but am I blaming Cool Cats because I bought Cool Cats? No. I learned a valuable lesson there of, like, you got to be patient. You got to practice self-control and buy something because you love it. Like, if you go off that narrative, you're not going to have regrets, you know? I've you know, experienced the same thing, and it's like, well, we just saw the hype and we thought it was going here. It's like, look, and it's one of the things too where artists are looking at their art, a lot good artists are, in terms of years and decades and like centuries, and like, what's this going to look like, you know, way down the line. And like, sometimes collectors will look at it as like, I can buy this and flip this, and, you know, it might be a good bet. Well, if you're buying it for that reason, you know, you lost. And if now you're selling,
be okay to take that loss. And say that was on me. I shouldn't.
Yeah, like take responsibility for your action and not like, oh, I bought something at a price point that I didn't like, but I figured that you would somehow make it go up so that I could get a profit off your work.
What am I going to do? You know, like, the only thing I can continue to do is create great art, which is why you wanted to collect from me in the first place, you know? And if that wasn't the reason, then you bought in for the wrong intentions, right? If you were buying in off the hype that I generated, I didn't promise to generate hype or not generate hype. But guess what? I'm still out there shooting 4 or 5 times a week. Guess what? Like when my life was hanging in the balance, what the fuck was I doing? Still making art, right? That's the only thing I've ever done and promised to do. You know, all the amazing things that have come from it and come from staying true and staying down and stuff like that is like, it's great. But you need to buy the art because you like the art or you believe in the artist. That's it. You know, anything else.
Hopefully both.
Right. Yeah. You know, like
that's like the 1-2 on the checklist. Like, do I love this piece? Do I love this artist?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of pieces you love, but you might not love the person who created it. Right. Or vice versa. There might be pieces from artists you love that you just don't love.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to make sure. Because I've done both. Where I love the piece, but not the artist. Mm-hmm. And I love the artist, but not the piece. And in the I love the artist, but not the piece scenario, it creates like I feel like a bad thing because then this artist might think that I really love this piece and I just love them. Yeah. And I'm like trying to help them out. And then, it's bad. It's like easy. You should have both of those bullets checked.
Easy check.
Before you buy any art.
So easy, you know? So that's my spiel on utility and open editions and whatnot. And when I do, you know, I build out what I plan for first day out, I think it's going to be amazing. Yeah. And, you know, when executed correctly, then all these people will come around and be like, you know, this is why artists, Rick Rubin said the best way to serve the audience is to ignore them. And that's some of the best advice. If you want to be a great artist, that's some of the best advice ever. You are there to have tunnel vision with what your vision is to create, you know, because when it's not going the way that the consumer wants it to go, they're going to blame you. When it is going great, they're going to love you. It's fickle, you know, like, so the only thing you can do is continue executing your vision, you know, and it's like, okay, if I execute something for first day out and it goes amazing, then all these people are going to come back around and be like, oh my God, like this is amazing. I'm so glad I held, like, even if I was complaining a year ago, like, I'm sorry, like, you're great. And then the next time I do something I don't like, they're going to be back to grumbling and complaining. And, you know, it's all fickle. You know, artists have to be able to zoom out and in a sense, be like, I don't give a fuck about anything right now. And a lot of when collecting is tied to ego, collectors don't like that. Because it's like, why aren't you paying attention to me? It's like a fucking child, you know? It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe because my art pays my bills. My art is my life. You know what I'm saying? I cannot give you my attention because guess what that does? Detract from my vision.
And you also didn't sign up to be a content creator. Yes, you're not a babysitter of a Discord chat. That's not what you're trying to do.
I am not here to sit here and babysit you and promise you all these different things and like make you feel good every single day. That's not it. I'm just here to make art that's going to change the fucking world.
I think a big part of that too is you have a lot of people who this is their first time making money and being in a position where they can buy artwork, do all these different things. And they have like I think like crypto Twitter in general is like really, really bad for most people's psyches. Yeah. And it makes you feel like shit. It makes you feel poor. Yeah. All you see is everyone else flipping things for millions of dollars.
Hey, if you don't have a PFP worth $100,000, bro, don't talk to me.
Yeah, literally. and so I think you get a bunch of really insecure people who are taking risks that they can't afford and also don't really know how to manage their own emotions about it and manage their risk and all these things. And it compounds and it ends up with people just like taking it out on the people who like were somewhat indirectly involved in them making their own mistakes. Mm-hmm. And they just like haven't been around the globe long enough to like understand and they, oh no, I fucked up. And like, and I think it just comes with the nature of just such like a young group of people who are really, really, for the most part, like financially illiterate. Like I was getting into crypto, and
we all were.
Same.
And now they've had this opportunity to make money, and they just are going to have to take their lumps and learn. And probably most people who are upset with you about whatever open edition stuff in 5 years when they look back are going to be like, yeah, I was a fucking idiot. Like,
yeah, it's always like that. It weighs on the artist in the moment because it's like, fuck. Because if you have a good heart, you want to do for everybody.
Course, yeah.
You know,
I feel like artists are so empathetic.
Empathetic, yes.
The emotional vibe from artists is so much more than that from most collectors or definitely traders.
I'm like, dude, I want to give you all everything. If I could give every fan, every supporter, every collector like the world, like I would, you know.
But then you have nothing left of yourself.
Then you have nothing left of yourself, and then yes, exactly.
Or your relationship.
Or your relationship, yes. And I reached a moment last year where I was like, this is too much for me. And, you know, with my brother passing, I was like, it was like the nail in the coffin of like, okay, now I have to take a step away. Mm-hmm. And it's been such a good correction curve of like, I'm going to be here making my best art ever. And like, I'll let time be the judge, right? Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that, you know, like, cause, you know, like I sat for a whole year going through so much shit that would break other people. And I was like, it's coming. Like my time is coming. It's going to be there. So I can do that at any given time, especially when I don't have that type of pressure on me now. I'm like, I will bet on myself and my art, and I will let time be the judge and see what you think about it, you know, in 5 years, you know, and 10 years or whatever, you know. And that's such a powerful place to be at because it brings you so much peace and lets you realize I'm not confined to whatever this random person said on the internet about me that now has me feeling like shit, you know? Yeah. So
I'd love to talk a little bit on a lighter note about some of the like amazing success that you've had, and like what was the process like of finding your art being sold at an auction house? And like that had to have been really fucking surreal.
That was sick because it was a year after the court hearing where they raised my bond to $400,000.
Yeah.
You know, so my lawyer, I'm flying. Yeah. 1 year exactly. I'm flying to London. My lawyer sends me his text. We're on the runway. And he was like, remember this from a year ago? He's like, he sends me a text, like a file of like the court documents, like a screenshot of the page of like what they said. And I'm like, man, I'm flying to London to go to Sotheby's. And like, you know, like I'm going to make more money in this auction to pay that bond, like, you know, 5-10 times over. Like, it was like crazy, you know, like, you know, at like 40% or at like 10%, I was like, man, it was so crazy to think about. So that was surreal, man. That was like a moment I'll never forget because it was like, I had a moment where I was like, I feel like I'm making it, you know? Mm-hmm. I feel like this isn't just a passing phase. Like, it's the first of many, you know, and having that feeling is like so nice, you know. I don't know. I mean, to go from like seeing like, okay, I got a little, like they had like a newspaper clip of like my art like hung up in our cell block, and like seeing it on the, like my boys like video call me when I got out and they're like, bro, like we got it right here. Like, that's you know, to see it from like that to like, oh, here I am at Sotheby's, or, you know, here I am at this gallery opening, or like, here I am in the New York Times or Rolling Stone, or like, you know, or like now, like here I am like doing a documentary. It's like, if it was a tenth of this, I'm just grateful to breathe free air. Like I just know the cost of everything, mm-hmm. you know? So to feel like those types of highs are like, man, and to know, like, I bet it all on on my intuition. Like, anytime, like, I can honestly tell someone, like, this is what it's like to put everything on the line with something that, like, only you are, like, feeling or seeing, or, like, I got called crazy by my lawyers time and time again. And I'm sitting across the table from, like, legal professionals telling them, like, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. I'm not going to follow, you know. And they're sticking with me because, like, I could say it with love and conviction and like make anybody believe, you know. Mm-hmm. I'm like people can look at me and they can listen to me talking and know like this guy, like he's just been through everything he's saying, you know. Yeah. And like the facts are there and everything's there, and it's like to know that, to feel that is like the best feeling ever. To know like I put everything into this, and the universe like threw it back tenfold is like the greatest thing ever. And I do believe in universal law like that. Like, you're not going to know what life has for you until you're putting everything into something, and there's no dollar amount, no whatever to like match that feeling.
Yeah.
Of like, sure. I know that I'm 100% true to this. Yeah. I've been tested to the point where you can't be tested no more. Like, it would have been the grave after that, you know? And I never quit. And like, knowing that feeling is like, that's the sweetest feeling ever. Being able to wake up. I wouldn't have been able to wake up and look myself in the mirror if I quit, or if I took a plea to like put me in prison, or like, you know, take a felony or whatever. Like, I wouldn't have been able to. But now it's like my record's clean, and like these opportunities are amazing. So it's surreal. It will never stop being surreal.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I'm never gonna have like what's happened to me. Like, it will. I'm sure some things will fade, but it's imprinted on me, you know?
So when you think about the next couple of years of art, and like, obviously what you're trying to build and everything is much longer than a couple of years, mm-hmm. but like something I was thinking about, like in thinking about this podcast, is like, I've never really had to think about like, how do you kind of decide, I want to do a collection, where my Vans go, then I'm going to sell one of ones on Super Rare. Like, mm-hmm. How do you kind of think about like the next couple of years of art? Are you hoping to do more collections, like where my Vans go, one of one art? Like, what do you find interesting? What do you find compelling right now, like in kind of the short term?
Man, so 2023, I think, will be like a very quiet year for me, mm-hmm. In the NFT space. I really am just fostering where my Vans go, mm-hmm. and I'm working on what I have planned for the open edition. You know, with where my Vans go and everything, it's like there's enough one-of-ones out there on the market. Mm-hmm. And I am, in the short term, working on just fostering that. And like the last piece I put out was foreshadowing with AOTN, and like did it as an edition of 6, and like I'm holding one edition. And that was amazing. And people are like, oh, I think this is your best work. And it's like, I want to put out one-on-ones every time now that are like that caliber, mm-hmm. you know,
where everyone says this is your best
people
work.
Are like, what the fuck? I mean, and you're not always going to hit like that, but you can, but the striving is like, okay, I am more detail oriented. I am more, you know, and, you know, for where I want to end up in museums and stuff like that, it's like, I want to perform. I'm not looking to perform that level down the road. Like, I'm trying to perform that level now, you know? So I'm not in a rush to put a lot out, or I haven't been asked if I'm going to put another one-on-one collection out. I have 2 I'm building right now, you know, but am I going to put them out anytime soon? No, there's no reason to, you know, like there's plenty to build. And I, am now getting ready to start on my documentary. I signed an NDA, so I can't say who I'm doing it with.
Well, congrats, that's sick.
Thank
that's
you.
Really cool.
It's that's going to be the biggest artistic or project of 2023, because it's like, if I can do all this right now, like imagine what I can do when my audience is times 100.
Yeah,
you know,
I can see it on Netflix.
Oh yeah,
like see myself.
Yeah,
on it. Like
it'll be there. Yeah. You know, so like it's like, okay, if. You know, and right now this is still like a niche story. Mm-hmm. You know, like I like ask myself, I'm like, what about when it's like on a global audience?
Yeah, I mean, the story is like to be honest, it sounds unbelievable for the most part. Yeah. And so I think
if I didn't live through it, I wouldn't believe it. Yeah, like, bro, you're full of shit.
The story as you sit down and talk through it for an hour. It's like, oh yeah, this could be like a fucking This American Life podcast talking through how insane your life has been for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it'll do very well on that kind of stage, and also will be very gripping for a lot of people.
Well, touch on the heartstrings. You're ex-military. That's a really big demographic of people, I feel like.
And
it's like you've just been absolutely fucked by the justice system, which is also probably a fairly big demographic of people.
Big demographic. There's something, and even just overall, you know, like the principles of it, the never give up, the be patient, mm-hmm. You know, like what does it mean to follow something like completely into the dark? I mean, there's all these overarching human principles, and I see that, and I know that like it's a human story most of all. Like there's elements of race, and there's elements of, you know, these different subsections of things, and like, but everybody can look at it and take something from it.
Yeah.
You know, and like that is what I want it to be. You know, I'm just here to tell the truth and make a great piece of art, you know, but I'm betting on myself for my audience, my fan base, my whatever, my collector base to grow so much because I'm focused on that. And while it might not be a flashy project out in the space, or it might not be generating all this ETH, like that's not the goal, because the goal is like in time, I have no doubt that it will.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like there's a whole, I mean, you know, the other 99.9% of the world that's not crypto Twitter that might come over and dabble in NFTs because they watched Drift's Netflix documentary or whatever. Or, you know, I might, you know, like I want to win an Oscar for my shit. I might be standing there at the Oscars and like people be like, that's huge, you know? And then they're coming and buying my art and whatever. And then you have that. You then have I finally get to tell my story. Like even what I just told you guys here is like 10%.
Yeah.
There's all these details that like, you know, and we finally get to get out all this stuff and tell my story in a way where people can check the paper trail and be like, this guy's been doing this all along, you know? Yeah. And then it clicks, you know? And so the focus is there, you know, like it's going to be an amazing documentary. We're getting ready to pick a director. Some could be sitting down with a short list of directors and like whatnot, but you know, like it's such a wonderful company producing it. And like they've produced some of the biggest shows and stuff in history. So it's like, I am so like thankful, you know, and like it's been a year and a half of talking to them since my New York Times article came out, and now it's finally coming to fruition. And so I'm preparing myself from that. I'm writing a book. I will also do a Where My Vans Go book, you know, that will have not only the collection that is out in the world right now, but like a lot more from all around the world and like some stuff like that. And
is that gonna be like a coffee table book kind of thing?
Yeah, you know,
I could see up there, see it by like continent. Like I open it up, like boom.
That's it.
North America.
That's it.
That's it.
So that's.
I will definitely have that on our coffee table once it's out.
That's one thing I'm working on right now is I'm just shooting all around the world. I'm building 2 more one-on-one collections, and yeah, you know, it will be, you know, like the book will be like by continent. You know, you might open up to Antarctica, and there I am sitting on a fucking glacier,
chilling with a penguin,
with like a fucking polar bear in like red Vans. You know, like so that's coming. I signed a deal with Vans to do a number of different things. I can't talk about all of them, but I am going to shoot in their global campaign shortly.
They woke up.
Yes.
Yeah, we got their 10.
They woke up, and there's some amazing things like that are coming and like long overdue. And so, like I said, like everything just takes time.
Yeah.
You know, but that's this next year for me. It's like fostering that relationship with them, writing this book or books, and working on this documentary. And I might release a one of one here or there, but mainly I'm just fostering my secondary market and trying to build out Where My Vans Go more and work on different placement for it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So just a really simple question. Why Vans?
I was going to ask the same question.
Well, you know what? Like, I shot with this girl once who like, we like shot this office building one day in Houston, and it was like I would do anything to shoot this building in like low fog. Like, it was like crazy, and it's got this glowing ring. It looked like we were in fucking outer space. The building's almost 1,000 feet tall, and like she just hit me up like, "Oh, I like your work" or whatever, and like I met her, and like instantly, like we just like instantly clicked, like insanely fast. Well, she ended up like ghosting me, but like she like wore these sick Vans, and I was like, I want to get a pair of Vans, so I did, and I just kept. Then I was like, oh, this is comfortable for me, so I just kept shooting them. That's it.
You're wearing like flat-footed skateboard
I'm already flat-footed and have like
climbing cranes.
Yeah,
shit,
you know.
Vans, like,
I already have just like super strong ass feet, so I think that's why it doesn't bother
like
me.
you could put bricks on your feet
and I'd be
like,
all right.
climb, and you'd be like, fuck it, like,
I'd be okay. It's just So that's how it works for me, you know. Like I wouldn't want to climb in other shoes. Like they're lightweight. They, you know, it just works.
It's all about what you're comfortable in.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's like riding a bike. Right?
Yeah.
We have a question we ask everybody. I hope it's not the name of the documentary. We have a question that is, what in the future would the title of your autobiography be?
And don't worry, we won't hold you to it.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. I won't come back in 10 years and be like,
we checked the chain.
It probably would be. So I'm gonna name my book, so it can't be that.
Dude, that's why I was like, shit.
This one's too close to home.
Like, you got like a documentary and a book. They're both probably got good names in the.
They do, but
coals in the fire.
I think that the autobiography would probably just be my tagline, "To the moon and never back." Like I think by that time, people will. I think that phrase will have made its way like so deep into the world, and like people will understand like my ideology behind it, and like. I'm going to build that out a lot, you know, in the next decade. And like, I think that because to me, it's like, that's like the mindset I live my life by. Like, I don't look at my life. Like I always want to know what's beyond, you know, like I'm all about like human growth is like the most, like amazing prospect, you know, to me. Like, so I'm always wanting to know, what can I do, become, you know? And that's why it's to the moon and never back, because I'm not trying to find limits with anything. I'm trying to continually surpass them. I'm trying to continue growing, like as a man, as a partner, as an artist. Like everything I do is about like, I just want to step beyond. Like I live my life on a consistent edge of like vulnerability, you know, to where it's the burden you have. It's the burden of progression. Like, you know, that is like how you have to live life if you want to see what all you can do and become. And if I live to be old, then I do. If I don't, then people will be like, okay, like, you know, like he lived life right, you know, and he brought us all to a higher plane of consciousness just through his existence and who he was. Like that's my goal, you know. And so if I ever had movie autobiography or whatever down the road, like that's probably what I would title it, you know.
One thing you mentioned a couple times earlier that I should have asked about then and I'll ask now is the psychedelics.
Yes.
And trips and the impact of a bad trip.
Yes.
And a good trip. And
I had one bad trip. All the rest have been good.
And I just wanted to go a little deeper on like psychedelic use. Like, when was the first time you tried a psychedelic, and what was it?
Man, you know, like I couldn't dabble in the Army, so then I got out, and you know what? It was like right before I got arrested. It was like November 2020, and like I took acid. It was crazy, and especially for artists, because we're so sensitive and like it can be a lot. And I'm already like very intuitive, and so like when I trip, it's like, okay, I find the answers, but there's usually I prefer shrooms to acid. Acid feels like it's gonna make my brain go fucking crazy. Like I don't feel good after acid. I feel great after shrooms. Like I take shrooms, I go to sleep, I wake up, I feel great, you know. But for me, like, I mean, I've steadily tripped since then, and I try to trip like, I try to have like a good heavy trip, like once every other month or like once a month, you know, like just a good ego reset. And just like creatively, it's amazing to see like where my mind goes and like, you know, the different things I see. And it's also amazing to see the different things I feel about timing. Like I'll be able to know like, okay, this chapter is closing, this door is opening. Like I knew that the day before I put out Where My Vans Go, like I will never forget that trip. Like I knew I was passing through to the best things in life, and legitimately I did not look back, from that day. And it's been up, up, up since then. It doesn't mean that there hasn't been hard things, but I was told that day, like, you're not going to have any run-ins with the police. You can go and create your work, and you don't have to worry. You're not going to get arrested again. You're not going back in a cell. You're going to win your case. And all of it came to pass. Like I knew it, I knew it like as sure as like touching this table. It was like, this is what it's going to be. And my art's going to do something crazy in the world. And like, that was the day that was like, this is it. I'm in there, and like, I think I'm going to be a successful artist. And it just started happening, So I think everyone should be using psychedelics sometimes, but I do think like it would be really good. But then, I had my first bad trip recently, actually, and it was because I ate a Delta 9 gummy.
Okay.
On accident. Like I did not realize it was a Delta 9 gummy.
So it was a normal gummy, or like a weed gummy.
Yeah, it was a weed gummy.
Yeah, but you thought it was like a normal.
Oh yeah. I thought I did not realize it was a Delta 9 gummy. I thought it was just like a normal weed gummy. Like, and I was so wrong. And it was like god awful. I mean, like, so
how many grams of shrooms did you eat with the gummy?
I didn't take any.
Oh shit! This is just from the gummy.
It was just from the gummy.
What dose was the gummy? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Like a 50 milligrams, 25 maybe.
I don't remember, okay. But it like sent me
to a bad place.
And maybe it was because like I thought like, oh, I'm just gonna get stoned from this gummy and like do some chores around the house. Like an hour later, I was like, the world's fucking ending, and I'm like looking at the sunset, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna fucking die. Like, this wasn't the way that it was supposed to be. And like my little brother had passed, and I like, always used to sit at sunset time and be fucking baked with him. So then I was fucking like, this wasn't, I'm talking to him like, this wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And like my dad had left because he was helping me get some stuff for moving out here. He had left my apartment. I called him and I was like, can you please come back? Like, I feel like I'm fucking dying. And like, I don't know what, like, and my heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, and like, I honestly, I don't know. Maybe it was because I wasn't expecting it. Maybe it was because like, all of the like darkness of like the past couple of years. And like when normally when I trip, like the first like 30 to 60 minutes, I like process a lot of that, like there's like everyone, like obviously it's so amplified, the feelings of fear, the feelings of like I might die, the feelings of like I might be looking at the same four walls for like years of my life, and then like it's when you're extra sensitive and you also understand the implications of all that, and you've felt death in your spirit, to where it's like I've like sat in my cell and felt like, all right, I feel like I'm dying, like I feel like I have had multiple moments where I'm like, I feel like this is the end. It's never been on a rooftop, it's always been in these moments. And then when that is like coupled with that and you're feeling it so strongly, it's just like coming face to face with death. And like, I normally work through that. And then the rest of the trip is like wonderful, it's like amazing. And like, I'm so creative, and like, I feel all these different things, and I have so many different visions, and and every single time like the visions come true, but I like this trip, it just fucking was really, really bad. And it felt like, but I understand it now.
Like in hindsight, was it a positive bad trip?
Yes.
Because I feel like
it wasn't like
no bad
trips. I don't think like, there is either.
There's bad trips in the moment.
Yes.
That might take you 3, 6, 9 months to process.
Yes.
But then once you come out the other side, you get this like cleansing feeling of like, oh, that's out of me now, and I feel more free or alive.
And that's what I feel now. Is I feel like I feel like I'm dying, and it was one chapter closing and another one beginning. I was getting ready to move out here. And what it was like, I'm leaving Cincinnati and I'm leaving this place.
It's like your Cincinnati self is dying in a sense. Like this flower's wilted and is now going to be reborn in New York as a,
right.
You know, it's springtime.
Yeah. And it was like, I'm leaving this, you know, I had all these flashbacks of like when I was locked up, when I was first getting the keys to that apartment, what that apartment meant to me. It was like, I have a place of safety and shelter, because they were going to try to move me out of Cincinnati because they were so afraid of like police surveillance and like me being hunted, and like they didn't want anyone to know where I lived. And then like, you know, I got this apartment like September of 2021 when I got through the second drop, when like things started going better, and it just represented safety and quiet. And like I realized like all this is ending, you know, this Cincinnati chapter, this coming back home. And like, you know, I had just come back home when this all happened with Great American Tower. It was like working through all of that. And then like the death of my brother lived with me, and then he had experienced this life-changing trip with me. And, you know, like, you know, it was all of that. The fact that my brother had died there, and that's, you know, like right outside that same apartment. And like, I, you know, had been through so many near-death things myself, and it wasn't even at my own hand. It was like other people just attempting to crush me, and not crush me just physically, but like emotionally, like crush your spirit to want to live, crush your spirit to want to fight. Like that's like another level of darkness, you know? That's like, I don't want to compare it to that, but that's like the worst kind of like oppression and darkness. Is like, I might not even kill you, but I'm going to make you wish you want to die. I'm going to make you wish that you don't want to fight anymore. I'm going to make you wish and think that we're better and stronger and greater than you.
And you're powerless.
Like, yeah, you're powerless, and that like your spirit to bring things to life, to create whatever. We want to crush all of that. That's like, dude, that's like death right there. You know, to be face to face with that for 2 years straight and just be fighting through it and trucking through it, and like still creating in the face of it. And like, but you feel it, you know, it like weighs on you every day. Like, this is what I'm up against. And no one knows all the details of my story, and no one knows what it's like been like to have to like get up every single day and carry this, you know. I didn't have a family to carry it for me, you know. Half my family didn't even show up for me when I was locked up, you know. Like, so, you know, and we didn't have money to like help me out and whatnot. It was like, if it's going to be, it's on my back. And then like all of you guys that have come along and like collected from me or helped me or like host the Twitter space for where my vans go, like you don't even know like that. It's just been like all these people have come along to help me through it, you know. And like, but the choice was always mine at the end of the day of like, what am I going to choose today? Knowing it could be my last day on earth, knowing that I could get more bad news because all I got was bad news for so long, you know. And then just carrying that with me and being like, then there's the afterthought of like, now I have money and creature comforts, but then it's like, what if I can't outpace this, right? Like this has left me so fucked up, but like, what if I can't heal my mind or like heal my spirit, you know? Like, that's a horrible feeling. Like, if I still look at police officers and I want to burn them alive, just being candid, I can't say that I'm not a healed human being. Like, I got so much more work to do, you know? It doesn't mean I'm not doing the work, but the feeling of like, what if I can't outrun these demons that are like now come from this experience, you know? What if I end up, you know, and I, like, my brother passed away from suicide, and it's like, you know, like the anger about that of like, I couldn't be around all the time. And part of it was because of his case and his like coming of age years. And then part of it was like getting out and trying to make it through my own situation. So I couldn't like take care of my baby brother like I wanted to, but like he was there when I was coming back from like trips and shooting, and I thought he was good, you know? But it's like, what if I can't outpace this shit, you know? And it was like, I was feeling that. And then the feeling of like, you will, like, this is like not physical death, but it's a closing on one chapter, and like you're opening up to another chapter, and just like you thought you were gonna die these other multiple times, like you won't. You'll pass on, and like a new form will take shape, and like you'll carry all your broken pieces and they'll mend, and like you will become something more beautiful as long as you continue to like process this grief and love, you know. But like I've had so many days, you know, the move out here has been good, and my partner Diana, she's an angel. Like it's been really good, but there's been so many days of like, if surviving the experience didn't kill me, will the aftermath kill me? I don't care if I have money now. I don't care if there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of people that see my art. Like I'm a human being, you know, and it's like I come down from shooting and I touch base on the ground and walk around like anybody else, you know. Like I wonder, I feel these emotions, and it's like nothing. I went through a year of thinking like, if I get more successful, it will like go away. It doesn't, you know? And that's why like me going to therapy and like doing the stuff that I'm doing is so important, and changing, and like getting out of that apartment and like whatever is so important. Cause it's like, I went through so much there, so much that like would just kill flat out, literally kill other human beings, you know? And I don't know. You know, it's just that feeling. So I had that bad trip, but I realized that like I went to sleep and woke up the next day and I felt bad about it. But I've realized now that like it's just transition. It's the end of like a horrible, horrible dark chapter, because as much light as there's been in success, like it doesn't change the fact that like this shit sucks. It's like people you see that go on from these horrible things, whether it be like a Holocaust survivor or whatever, and they go on and they become successful, or people that have had near-death experiences or huge traumas, you know. Their humanity gets overshadowed in their success, to where they become this figment of like the imagination that represents all these ideals, but they cease to become a human. It's like people look at them like, oh my God, like you're like a superhuman because you made it. It's like, no. A human being did that, and a human being is suffering regardless of how much money is in their bank account, regardless of how much success they have. That shit does not negate any of that. And so when I was going through a trip, I think it was just a lot of like realizing like, man, I'm closing the door on a chapter that I thought was going to end me, truly end me, you know. And here I am. And just that is like a testament to like, you know, I've kept going, and I feel, and I'm glad that I have, you know, and whatever is to be next will be and will naturally unfold. And I'm just letting it come with patience, and like, you know, and I don't look at it as a bad trip. I'm just like, all right, you know, there's a lot of darkness there, and I've had to let it go. But like, these are good days, man. You know, like these are great days. I feel like the air is back in my lungs again. I feel like it wouldn't even matter if I went on to sell another piece of art. It's just like I did what I had to do, and I will. But it's like, man, to know that like I did it is just fine. If I was to drop dead after I step out of this door, no incompleteness, you know, very happy.
One of the things you mentioned during that is touching on processing emotions. Mm-hmm. And I recently, you know, this summer lost one of my best friends to suicide too. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to let yourself actually process those emotions. And I think what we end up doing is just bottling it up, and then it comes out in a way that we can't control because we bottled it up for so long. Yeah. And I feel like for me, those ways it comes out is like normally in a trip. Yeah. It's like, all right, I'm forcing myself to deal with this because I've been putting this off for 3 months now. Yeah. And you know, not getting any better. I need to process this, or, you know, maybe something else. And then during the trip, it just comes out. It's like you're pouring the water out on the table. Yeah. And it's dirty. It's a mess, but then it evaporates and it's cleansing. It's cleansing. Yeah. And I definitely recommend anybody to go to therapy too. I think that's a theme we're seeing this week early on, is that every guest we've talked to has talked about therapy. Mm-hmm.
That's good. I mean, yeah, it's like I go through these days and I'm like, I can't, it's too complex, especially my shit and like all of this and like police abuse and race and all these different things that like play into it. And then I have to continue. I don't have to, but I'm choosing to continue on in this country in the name of like, I want to make change and progress, you know? So there's a whole amount of vulnerability that comes into play when you say, I have been a victim of something and I'm now choosing to throw myself and plunge myself back into the environment that has like nearly destroyed me because I wanted to be better for the next people that come after me, you know? That is like, when you see people do that, whether you look at like civil rights leaders or whatever, who had been jailed or beaten or shot or whatever, it's like, that is an intense amount of love and vulnerability, you know? And like feeling that and knowing that and accepting that, like, I'm not going to run. I could travel the world and shoot nonstop, you know? And it would be a blast, right? But there's too much shit I want to do, you know? And I just choose to face it. And like therapy is one of those things where it's like, if I don't, I still feel like I'm like, man, I will combust if I don't like meticulously dissect this stuff. And I have to be every single day, like confronting it, facing it, you know, or it will come out in ugly ways in my relationships and how I am towards other people. You know, it will block me as an artist because then you're not moving from a place of love and spirit. Like, you know, your ego gets involved and there's hate and there's anger and there's like, and anger's not always bad, but like there's these dark emotions that like, they're not wrong for feeling them, but they need to be processed in a healthy way. And you can't always, sometimes you need to just be talking to somebody else about it, and just saying it out loud materializes it, unless you realize A, it's valid, right? Like we're living a human experience, but B, like I'm equipped to handle it. I can do it. And on the other side is a better version of me, you know?
That's good. What time are
we at? We were almost at 3 hours.
Oh shit.
Yes, but yeah, we're crushing it.
Do you have a hard stop?
No, I had one call that was supposed to happen that I canceled.
Oh, nice.
So nothing else, but probably for the sake of our cameras and stuff, we don't want to go too much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
For the sake of
respectful your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can
shoot. I might run off and see if I can
do a little.
Yeah, do it.
Sunset vibing.
Yeah, you know, the sunset, the clouds are looking promising. So if the sun's still out.
Should we
can wrap it up.
Yeah.
But we asked the question. So I asked the question about the autobiography. We only wrap with that, but then I was like, wait, like I didn't ask about the psychedelic stuff, and I know we've talked about it before.
Oh.
No,
I fucking love talking about psychedelics.
I do too. I feel like it's been one of the few. I haven't gone to therapy myself yet. I probably need to. I definitely need to. Let me just say that. I don't probably need to. I definitely need to. But just like psychedelics have helped me process things that have been recessed for years.
Yes.
Because I never really took them until the summer of 2020. No, 2021. 2021 summer. And I had my first eighth of shrooms.
Yeah.
And I went
life-changing.
Like microdosing to an eighth, and then I felt the ego death and felt like I died, and it really changed my perspective because it was right when I quit my job working for the government and started working for fractional, and it was like a rebirth in a way of like, oh, like, you know, old first name, last name is dead. Here is these.
Yeah.
And like, it's been crazy. I don't know how to describe it other than I was able to like shed the skin of my old life and like embody the true version of myself, like,
right,
because I wasn't able to be the true version of myself in my old ecosystem. I just show up for 9 to 10 hours every day, put on a suit and tie, be fake, and kiss ass, and be dishonest with people so that I could gain social or political favor to rise ranks. And it just felt like I was a shell of who I wanted to be. And I'm on Twitter being myself. As Steve. Just like GMing, or it was before GMs, but just like shit posting and being authentic. And it wasn't until like getting out of that system, it was like, oh, I can finally be myself. And that system is like what made my friend kill himself. Like he was in that system. Like he was the person who mentored me when I first joined, and he was my first friend out of college. And it was like he was the person who should have been at a private company as an early employee, with equity and a bunch of drive. But he was in a government system and it's super bureaucratic where he felt like he had to do everything or everything would stop because he was like, the senior level network and system admin. So he put all this pressure on himself and couldn't take it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what could I have done? Like, there were no signs. Like, I had ice cream with him a week before it happened. I went with his family, his 2 kids, my wife, and there was, like, no sign there. He was trying to help me fix my fucking computer.
Yeah.
Like, I dropped off my computer. He was trying to fix it. He couldn't fix it. And then I was picking it back up while we got ice cream. And it was like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
A week later, I get a text from his wife, and it's like, I had to bring the phone to my wife and be like, can you read this and tell me, like, is this real?
Yeah.
It's great.
Sorry, man.
That's good.
Yeah.
But we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
On a positive note, is there anything or, you kind of have talked about 2023 plans. Is there anything you want to shout out or...
This will probably air in maybe 1.5 months or so for frame of reference. If there's anything you want to shout out, but yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, outside of the 2023 plans, like that's the biggest thing, is just working on a documentary and with fans and creating this book, but I think I just want to give a thank you to like the space and the people that are in it, and, like my collectors and like, because it has been such an overwhelming 2 years for me that like I have not always got, or 1.5 years, I guess, of like being in a space. It's like and I've had so much going on that I always get the time to just slow down and be like, hey, I so appreciate you for taking time for my art. If people just look at it and like it and retweet it or just look at it, like I am like so thankful, so definitely that. And then my partner Diana Sinclair, because she just is incredible, not just as an artist but as a person, and has made the world feel like a lot more of a safe place for me to exist in, going through all of this and adjusting to my new life and whatnot, and that is invaluable to, especially coming out of a situation where like I after like you talk about like trust issues and stuff, after like what I went through, I like to not trust anybody. I like, I didn't believe anything good was going to, all these different things, so I'm just infinitely thankful for her too. So, and my dad and my younger brother, both the one who's living and the one who passed, and just their involvement in helping me get here, So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Man. This was really great.
Having me.
This was awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely have Diana on at some point.
Yeah,
we gotta.
She's, man, yeah, it would be good. She's awesome.